Well, listen to you. It's come on, it's a new low in NVIDIA right now.
Well, it is, but also retail investors bought the dip yesterday. So they ended the day with a net balance of $1.3 billion in cash equities, according to JP Morgan.
John, help me here. I mean, the justice here, my head hurts.
I like JP's got the scarf on.
Oh, you like that? It's my Toulouse-Lautrec book.
Well, let's see. John Tucker, our 201K reporter from New York City, stay with us. This is Bloomberg's surveillance. The Tri-State News, Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom. Federalite.
People. My aunt and uncle worked very hard for their property, for their land. My uncle lived in that house for 50 years. We are talking about, generational, we're talking about generational home ownership. Most of the people that died in the Altadena fire were elderly because they worked their entire lives just to own land, just to own a piece of property. And I think it's unfortunate that the state is being held hostage for some political goal. And that is the part, if I'm being very honest with you, that upsets me more than anything, because this is not the time. This is the time for the country to actually come together and to help each other as much as possible. I'll stand down for my soapbox. I apologize.
No, I guess it reflects the opinion of many people. I don't know if of all people of California, but I wanted to get your take, Natalie, without sharing too much about your insurance situation, just as much as you can. How did it make you feel to see so many people talking about the fact that in California, they're all rich and famous, and so they can afford to rebuild from this?
Obviously sad enough to post a video about it. It made me really upset, the ignorance to people in California, that somehow an entire state as large as we are, just every single person here is affluent or living this very lavish, beautiful life that, I mean, some do, some are lucky enough to have that, and, bless them for it, but not everybody is in that category, unfortunately. And someone like myself, I'm basically living off of hopes and prayers right now. What little savings I have left, unfortunately. And I do believe that this has been way too politicized. I do not like the government's response to this. Don't like it. Don't like at all how this has been politicized.
And I think one of the very interesting elements, obviously, in any crisis is the fact that people can indeed question authorities, the time of the response, how they respond, but obviously the political infighting is quite delicate because we are talking about people's lives. And one of the points picked up online was a specific program by the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, where inmates help fight the fires. Some online users were quite shocked by the fact that they were working in dangerous conditions and being paid about $1 an hour. We spoke to a former inmate, Royal Ramley, who has a different take on the program. Take a look.
So first off, it's a voluntary program, and no one has to do it. Second, it's an opportunity that folks can learn a skill that could potentially turn into a career that allow them to make, 60 to 100K a year with benefits, retirement, and much more, right? When you at fire camp, the benefits are pretty much you get better food. You can meet with your family in a park-like setting instead of behind the glass. You're out there in the community, helping out instead of you being in a cell pretty much all day. And so for me, it was life-changing, like you said earlier. And it's about how we could put that training into work once, men and women come home. And we need to provide a pathway to get folks a career that doesn't just help them, but it helps our community. And because, fire prevention is a key and we need more of it.
Rebecca, your take on this and on the conversation around it online, but also on how this crisis will further exacerbate other.
So I'm streaming on Rumble now, and I'm streaming on my website and YouTube. On YouTube, you can see the dashboard. So you can take a look at the market telemetry as we cover the news. So let me do a market update. The S&P 500 is trading at 6,009. VIX is at 18. The Euro USD is trading at 1.04. Oil is trading at $73.46 a barrel. Bitcoin ETF long is BITO, that's trading at 24.93. And the US Japanese yen is at 155.22.
Municipal bonds, I'm gonna learn a lot of things. My knowledge is not that big, so I'm looking forward to learning a lot about munis. We're gonna talk to, in this hour, up here, DeGroot, he's head of muni research at JP Morgan. We'll talk to him at the top of the next hour. And Tom Doe, founder and CEO of Municipal Market Analytics as well. So we'll learn a lot. We'll also make sure to cover all the news, and earnings are also going crazy, right? GM getting hit pretty hard. You also have Lockheed, you have RTX, so we'll make sure to break all those down as well.
Thank you, Alex Steele and Paul Sweeney. BAM Mutual, look for that here in exactly 4 minutes, 3 seconds. Jess Benton publishing this morning. Were you writing your story during the show?
No, this ran actually before the show.
You wrote this before the show.
So I had
Investors to watch Powell's tone.
Yes.
I agree with that, but I think it's a real mystery what we're going to see tomorrow.
Well, also, I mean, when you think about how tight-lipped he tends to be for obvious reasons, and what he was like, say, in between the years 2018, 2019, 2020, obviously before what COVID happened, but I was looking at more so what the options implied moves, moving a little bit higher here, but still under the average over the last year and a half. So
Right.
option traders betting a 0.8% swing in either direction on Wednesday. That's below the average of 1.1%, according to Piper Sandler for the last 18
Green on the
months.
screen this morning is a generalization. And we've got a first 28 minutes pullback here, sort of that's wrong, a softness. What do you make of that? I mean, it's just the market choosing, or is it just waiting for the Fed?
Well, also, if you look over what the dollar's doing as well as yield, so the dollar index, we look at the Bloomberg spot index that's moving higher, as well as you're looking at the 10-year treasury up just a few basis points, trading at 4.55. So usually when you see some dollar strength, as well as yields moving higher, sometimes you can see a little bit of pressure here in the equity market. But when you have NVIDIA, which is when you're thinking about the weighting it has in the S&P 500, that turned lower, and now that actually had been higher in pre-market trading. So when you have that moving lower, and then also we had talked about breadth being better yesterday. Actually, if you use that WEIB function I was talking about earlier,
Paul,
you can
the only
see.
one I know, Alex Steele and I don't use the WEIB. Sweeney's all over it.
See, I feel like maybe I gave up a heads up about that one, but right now you have around 300 stocks lower, around 200 that are roughly higher. So a little bit of an opposite yesterday, because even though we had the S&P down 1.5% yesterday, you still had around 350 stocks higher.
John Tucker, this is like too much information.
She is like the DeepSeek of Bloomberg.
She is the
She does it all, and she does it for much fewer dollars, right?
Yeah,
Yes, let's go.
Or at least, compared to you.
We're that next promotion.
DeepSeek. I like that. Yeah, it's like AI.
But hey,
Okay.
we got a whole team out there. You know, there's 30 of us for the U.S.
Whoa,
equities.
wait a minute. How many are you?
There's a machine out there, at least 30
30?
of us for just U.S. equities. So there's.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding at all. So there's like a bunch of bees.
Is
out
that
there.
through the interns?
Actually, no. So then if you include the interns as well as the rotators, even more. The rotator program at
You know,
Bloomberg.
our team in the morning, 2.
Who's rotating? John Tucker right now.
The guy who sweeps the floor.
We gotta get to the end of the show. Jess, this has been a joy. Can I
Glad it's still a joy.
I have no idea what Sweeney's doing. I don't know, Sweeney may be like, getting the beach house
Got
open.
it
We'll
in breaking
see.
thing.
Thank you, Jess Benton, for joining this morning. Paul Sweeney and Alex Steele coming up. Important conversations on ticking a bit as tax-free bonds. It's real simple. I got to play Texas music. What do? You play that fabulous Thunderbirds with Jess Benton. Good morning.
I hate it when they do that music because it sets problems with the copyright. All right, so what I just did was I set up the website feed, the YouTube feed, so you can watch the dashboard. I'm setting up the X Spaces so you can do a call in. So you can watch the live stream on Rumble, on YouTube, on my website, and you can listen in through X Spaces shortly. I'm going to be doing that. So let me continue on here. Set up the X Spaces.
Immigration agents and posted video as they staged raids on undocumented immigrants suspected of criminal activity in New York City. CBS New York's Christina Fan says they made at least one arrest.
You can see law enforcement officers carrying out the enforcement operation at an undisclosed location. We're told the suspect, now in custody, whom the DEA blurred in these photos, is facing charges of kidnapping, assault, and burglary.
The Trump administration has just ordered a pause on federal grants and loans. CBS's Nancy Cordes.
The White House appears to be calling on all agencies to impose a spending freeze on federal assistance by 5 p.m. today.
Business analyst Jill Schlesinger. Because there weren't a lot of details, organizations ranging from those focused on medical research to food assistance to funding suicide hotlines have now been thrown into turmoil, trying to gauge whether or not they will be impacted. Michigan Senator Gary Peters, who led the Democrat Senate campaign efforts over the last 2 election cycles, has made a surprise announcement. He will not seek re-election. After losing the presidential race, it forces Democrats to defend a critical seat in the GOP-controlled Senate without the advantage of an incumbent. One name being bandied about, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. CBS's Jim Krasula now with an update on a financial settlement in a disastrous train derailment in eastern Ohio.
The village of East Palestine and the Norfolk Southern Railroad have announced a $22 million agreement to settle all of the village's financial claims from a 2023 train derailment near the Ohio-Pennsylvania border. The railroad has already paid the town more than $13 million to clean up toxic soil that resulted from the accident.
Tech stock slightly higher a day after China's artificial intelligence startup turned Wall Street upside down, disrupting America's plans for AI dominance. CBS's Kelly O'Grady.
DeepSeek is saying that this cost less than $6 million to make. You compare that to $100 million to $1 billion for the comparable U.S. models, and it's also more energy efficient. It used just about 2,000 chips versus tens of thousands.
NASDAQ up right now more than 1%. Strong profits and record profit sharing at GM. Here's WWJ's Jeff Gilbert.
GM's bottom line was impacted by big costs in China. The profit sharing is based on North American earnings. And Chief Financial Officer Paul Jacobson says that means checks of up to $14,500.
When we deliver results like these, everybody wins, including our employees.
The S&P.
All right. I just set up the X Spaces call-in, so please go to my X Spaces if you'd like to ask a question. If you just want to listen, that's fine too. Just request the mic and you can ask the questions or type in the chat. I'll try to answer. Yesterday was a big AI trading day, but in the negative. Because of the news of DeepSeek really shaking up the whole investment community for AI, lots of different companies that are tied to AI, like NVIDIA, sold off a lot. So the question is it just an overreaction and they'll mean revert, or is this a downtrend in AI investment? Now, my take is that there's probably going to be, especially the NVIDIA stocks, that it probably will sell off some more before it starts to go up. We probably have seen kind of the burst of the bubble of NVIDIA. Okay, now what I'd like to do before All right, so US consumer confidence came in at 104.1, estimate was 105.7. So the US January Consumer Confidence Index was below estimate, but it's still relatively good. Now the equity market for S&P 500 is trading at 6,027 right now. And the VIX is trading at 17.38, so we're okay. And the BITO ETF for long-dated Bitcoin is at 25.03. Please help support my work by purchasing the products that I offer, and not by just purchasing the products to help support the work. You're helping support your health. And these are products that I take every day as part of my health protocol to boost up my immune system, help the different systems in my body, right? So I've been doing this for a long time. I've been taking supplements and, you know, having this concept of, you know, health and wellness since I was 16 years old. I'm a lot older than 16 now. Some people think I look like I'm 16, but I think that's, you know, going overboard. But the thing is, I've been doing this for a long time, and over time, over the decades, different products, different ways to stack, and looking at it the holistic approach way really can boost up your energy levels and slow down the aging process and help with your immune system. So when you have a good immune system and a healthy bodily system, then you're just going to have more vitality. And if something happens, if you're exposed to something, or you contract something, or perhaps, you know, you might, you know, develop cancer or something, if you have a strong immune system, it's going to be better than having a weakened immune system. If you look at people that have weakened immune systems, even if they're younger, people that have weakened immune systems can't fight disease as well. So please go to my store and take a look at some of the great products that I offer. Now, one great product that I offer to help with your skin and your bones and your joints, your hair, your nails, your muscles is collagen. This is a powder. This is a month's supply. You get a big scooper and you mix it with filtered water. Some people mix it with milk. Some mix it in a smoothie. I mix it with hummus, so a soft food, you know, like yogurt or hummus or whatever. And the amino acid profile is pretty impressive. This is something you take once a day. It's a big scooper. You mix it the way you want to mix it. Filtered water, soft foods, with whatever, smoothie. Take it every day. The best results for skin is to also take the vitamin C that I have and drink filtered water. And that way you get the cross link of the collagen, the vitamin C, and you're helping your dermal layer. To help with your bones and your joints, do some resistance training, build up some muscle, and you know, and you're what you're doing is not only are you building muscle, but you're sending a signal to your body for like growth signals. By doing resistance training, you're actually creating a microenvironment for growth signals. So when that happens, the body is remodeling. The body is adjusting to this new strain that you're putting on your muscle and your joint. So take the collagen every day, do some resistance training, do some cardio, and do this on a repeated basis. And what you're going to notice is that your joint health is going to be better, your bone health is going to be better. You're going to notice your hair quality, the health of your hair, and the health of your skin, and the health of your nails are going to improve. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen peptide. This is a very high quality product. Now, you know, some people would say, oh, it's a little expensive. This is very high. You know, people go, well, I can get collagen for cheaper. Yeah, but are you getting the same quality of collagen? You know, that's the point, the really important point to be made here. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This is what I take. This works really well. And I also have a anti-aging skincare box, beginners and advanced, that's at a discount, you know, built in the box. So you get collagen, you get structural nano silver gel, and you get the vitamin C in the beginner's box. And in the advanced box, you get all of that plus C60 in resveratrol. And that way you're targeting all the different layers of your skin. You're targeting the topical layer, the dermal layer, and the basal layer. Guess what? You do that for a month or two, and you're going to notice that your skin's improved. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen either separately or get it in the box, the anti-aging skin care box, beginners or advanced. And you'd be targeting not just your skin, but also your joints and your bones. So it's dual purpose. Now, the way I do the anti-aging boxes and the longevity boxes is I build it in such a way where the cost of all those supplements are cheaper in the box than buying them separately. All right. And you can use a discount 5 on top of that. So it behooves you to get an anti-aging box or a longevity box and use discount 5 as the discount for $5 off. Another great supplement that I have before we go to Bloomberg here is digestive enzyme complex. As we get older, we have to reduce the load on our pancreas. All right. I don't care how healthy you are. Everyone, even me, has a weakened pancreas as we get older. Now, if you're an athlete, you're going to also benefit from this, either older athlete or a younger athlete. The reason being is that digestive enzyme complex breaks up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. So if you're doing your pre-fuel or your after-fuel workout, this will help to break the foodstuffs and absorb the nutrients and recover quicker for your workout, and to get those nutrients as you're working out. If you're older and you're not an athlete, you'd benefit from digestive enzyme complex because you're reducing the load on the pancreas. So if you're an athlete or you're older and you want to be able to reduce the load on the pancreas, it behooves you to get the digestive enzyme complex. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Have the enzymes to break up the carbohydrates, the proteins, and the lipids for better absorption of your food and reduce the load on the pancreas. This is a really important supplement that people should be taking, especially if you're older. All right, let's go back to Bloomberg. Right now, Al Jazeera is streaming something about the Palestinian and Gaza occupied West Bank at the United Nations. And Live Now is dealing with the Senate hearing about the impact of the Panama Canal. So let's go back to Bloomberg here for a second.
It's not clear. The tariff power has not been used in that way before, so we haven't seen that sort of exact precedent. But when he talks about sector-specific tariffs, we have seen tariffs used before in that way, and they have been universally upheld. So it's you don't know if it's a negotiation tactic or if he genuinely intends to oppose them.
Holly, what kind of support, I guess, within just broader Washington, broader trade community in Washington is there for tariffs, whether they be kind of surgical or more broad?
Well, it could be either. So
I just got a text message on the feed that's with YouTube by Tara. If you could type in what HR 238 basically is, she's making the statement that it's going to change medicine in the long term, but I'm not familiar with the HR 238 bill.
Address countries not abiding by trade agreements. We've seen this happen in 2018 when he did this on China and imposed tariffs on $370 billion worth of goods from China, and they were sweeping tariffs, all kind of thousands of goods. So it could be something like that. Nixon used one statute to impose a tariff of 10% on all durable goods in 1970. So that was sort of a broad, the closest thing we have to a universal tariff, and that was upheld by the courts. So it could be either, that the statute gives them authority to do either, but it's just, will this specific tariff be upheld when the courts look at it, and that, it depends. But I will say that courts have been very reluctant to overstep the tariff authority of the president. We found no case in which a tariff was struck down that was affirmed on appeal. So every tariff essentially was upheld by the courts.
So talk to us about some specific sectors, Holly, that you guys are looking at when it comes to these tariffs.
Well, for example, he's imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum. I think that's likely to happen again. We've been looking at the auto sector because he's threatened to impose tariffs on autos from Mexico and electric vehicles, for example, perhaps in China. So, and it affects like so many different industries. So we've looked at, industries across the board because they could all be affected.
Holly, what have we heard from some of the companies that could be impacted? So, for example, General Motors just reported today, and I would think, boy, I know we import a lot of cars coming through Mexico. That would be a real impact on their business and what consumers have to pay for cars. Have you heard anything from these companies yet that kind of strikes you?
This is some important information that Tara is putting in the live feed for the YouTube channel that I have. So I'm just going to read it for the ones that are listening on X Spaces and the ones that are watching on Rumble. So she writes, okay, HR 238 to amend the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to clarify that artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies can qualify as a practitioner eligible to prescribe drugs. So that's going to radically change the medical. I mean, literally, you're going to have Dr. R2D2 and C3PO there, and then if authorized by the state involved and approved, cleared and authorized by the Food and Drug Administration and for other purposes. But she's going to read some more about HR 238. So for the ones that don't know about this, I didn't know about it. Thank you, Tara, for putting this up. That's the whole point of this show. We're going to be smarter together if we share information. So ask questions, tell me your opinion, type in the chat, share the information. So here we have a bill, HR 238, that could radically change medicine, especially in the realm of artificial intelligence. Okay, let's go back to Bloomberg here.
They're going to shutter some investment banking units in Europe and the US, really doubling down the Middle East and Asia as well. Plus, Tom Doe is founder and CEO of Municipal Market Analytics. We're going to break down the muni market, what to expect, where the opportunities are, and what to think and do under President Trump administration. This is Bloomberg Intelligence from.
Okay, so tomorrow, I believe, is a Fed announcement. So the markets are probably going to move tomorrow. It's probably going to be, maybe a little bit of a recovery, taking some opportunity to dollar cost average from the sell-off from yesterday. But if you're more of a investor, then taking the opportunity to buy the dip probably makes sense. If you're more of a trader, you probably want to stay out of the market today. Don't change your positions too much. Have some powder dry for the activity for tomorrow, because I suspect what they have to say will move markets. Now, exactly what they will say, I don't know. Are they going to signal that they're going to do a rate cut? Are they going to signal that they're going to do a rate hike or just pause? Because if whatever option they do is radically going to change the momentum of the market. All right. So just if you have a little bit of money on the sideline, I would just wait until tomorrow. All right. I think Live Now is broadcasting. Let's drop into Live Now and see what's happening here. This is the Senate hearing, I think.
Senator Ted Cruz, as well as the Senate committee, is discussing the roles of the Panama Canal as it regards to the United States' economy and national security. Let's turn up the sound and listen in.
Peace management and Panama government's policies affecting maritime operations. Since 2015, Chinese companies have increased their presence and influence throughout Panama. Panama became a member of the Belt and Roads Initiative and ended its diplomatic relations with Taiwan. Chinese companies have been able to pursue billions of dollars in development contracts in Panama, many of which were projects directly on or adjacent to the Panama Canal. Many were no-bid contracts, labor laws were waived, and the Panamanian people are still waiting to see how they've been benefited. It is all more concerning that many of these companies are state-owned, and in some cases even designated as linked to the People's Liberation Army. We must address the significant growing presence and influence of China throughout the Americas and in Panama specifically. American companies should play a leading role in enhancing the canal's infrastructure. By supporting U.S. firms, we reduce reliance on Chinese contractors and promote fair competition. Additionally, confirming a U.S. ambassador in Panama is critical to advancing our national and economic interests. The FMC will continue to monitor the canal's pricing practices and consider broad reviews of Panama's maritime sector. Yes, FMC has the authority to impose significant remedies, including fines and restrictions on Panamanian flagged vessels entering U.S. ports. In closing, the Panama Canal is vital to our economy, with over 75% of its traffic bound for our ports. Safeguarding the ACP's independence and addressing the challenges posed by the broader government are essential to maintaining U.S. competitiveness in the global economy. I look forward to your question.
Thank you, Chairman. Our next witness is Commissioner Daniel Maffei of the Federal Maritime Commission. He was also in Panama with Chairman Sola. Mr. Maffei, I look forward to your opening statement.
Thank you very much,
I'm
Chairman.
dropping back in.
Ranking Member here. 24. You can trade your prediction with IBKR Forecast Trader. The yes was recently at 35%. Buy yes or no and earn $1 if you're right. Go to ibkr.com/forecast. The major stock averages right now, they are slightly higher after the DeepSeek frenzy yesterday. Most active are shares of NVIDIA, recovering some after that 17% sell-off. It is now, right now, shares of NVIDIA up 1.7%. NVIDIA, Apple, Amazon, they are the leaders in the NASDAQ 100 in terms of index points. Also in focus, the Fed starting its two-day policy meeting today. Don't expect any changes to rate policy. Traders also focusing on earnings announcement from Microsoft and Apple, among others, later this week. The profit growth at the biggest tech companies projected to come in at the slowest pace in almost 2 years. And it's worth repeating, Alex, you said this yesterday, in the S&P 500 yesterday, rising stocks far outnumbered the declining ones. That bullish breadth amid such a big index decline, probably unprecedented in the last 20 years or so, according to Bloomberg data. Right now, the S&P 500, 24 points higher. That is a 0.4%, 6,037 on the index. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, right now up 140 points. That's a rise of 0.3%. And the NASDAQ 100, 165 points higher. That is up 0.8%. And we check the markets view all day long, right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Alice Paul.
All right, thanks so much, John Tucker. Alex Steele here alongside Paul Sweetie. This is Bloomberg Intelligence Radio. We are broadcasting to you live from downtown Lower Manhattan for BAM Mutual. We're going to talk munis and get the take on where the analysts are looking for the huge opportunities this year after a stellar 2024. But in the meantime, we also want to update you on some of the stocks on the move and all the interesting headlines in the business world. HSBC is one of them. Now, the stock in London is trading pretty much flat, but the news behind it is quite interesting. The company is going to wind down its investment banking operations in Europe, the UK, and the Americas, focusing on Asia and the Middle East. Joining us now, Harry Wilson, Bloomberg Finance reporter. Harry, was this a surprise to you?
I think that today's news is a surprise. It's something that we probably expected that could happen over the years. The truth is that HSBC has really been nowhere on Wall Street and in the city for some years now. It's struggled to even get into the top 10 when you look at major league tables like equity underwriting or M&A. So the idea that they're just now kind of giving up on this thing, realizing that they can't compete with the likes of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and that actually they'd just be better off focusing their resources on markets where they do have some scale, such as Middle East and Asia, makes a lot of sense. So I guess short answer, timing-wise, surprise. Longer term, no, I don't think it's particularly surprising that they're taking these actions.
So, I mean, this kind of goes to me, Harry, up from a bigger question, which is these European banks, can any of them be global investment banks? I mean, 20 years ago, I don't think we would have seen this happen.
I think it's very difficult. European banks have faced these type of problems going back decades now. Many have tried to make some kind of impact on Wall Street, and many of them have come back having spent hundreds of millions and got really nothing for their investment. The simple fact is that Wall Street is something of a lockout by the US major firms. And even when you get the likes of, say, Barclays, which was able to buy off the peg the Lehman operations in 2008, even they've struggled to make much of it. And I guess the issue is that if even a bank like HSBC, the largest bank in Europe, can't really...
Isn't it amazing that Lehman took place, depending on where you want to put the event, either 2007 or 2008, but the Lehman event, right, is still echoing into our economy today in 2025.
You've got a lot of money in the Middle East. Every day we see headlines about a Middle East hedge fund being involved in some deal or another. So these are good places to be a big bank. The question really is if you don't have the operations, say, on Wall Street, in the City of London, continental Europe, how meaningful can you be to those types of clients in Asia and the Middle East when they want to do stuff around the world? It's all very well, obviously, saying, we're very big in Middle East and Asia, we'll service you there. But when it comes to being able to offer some kind of global perspective, maybe being somewhat lacking there. And I think that's going to be the area that's going to be interesting to watch here, is whether HSBC, if it doesn't have the stuff around the world and is purely focused on Asia and Middle East, whether that is still a good proposition to its clients that in those regions that maybe wants a more worldwide global network offering.
All right, Harry, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Harry Wilson, Bloomberg News, talking to us about HSBC stepping back some of its investing banking activities around the world. Let's get back to the municipal market. We are at BAM Mutual offices down in Lower Manhattan, Build American Mutual, talking about the municipal bond industry. Tom Doe of Municipal Markets Analytics. Municipal bond market, it's an active market. Talk to us about 2024 in terms of...
All right, I'm going to go into Al Jazeera talking about the ceasefire here.
Today in a position to help this returning population?
I mean, quite frankly, we, like any other aid organization, and we are on the smaller side, we do what we can with the resources, that we have. We also have to keep in mind that every single person working in the humanitarian sector in Gaza, the vast majority of which are Gazans themselves, so living the displacement, living the very same hardships are absolutely exhausted. We need to actually not just be able to scale up what's coming in, but also be able to scale up staff-wise so that we can, provide for the population. And then there's other aspects of all of this that perhaps many people aren't aware of. A lot of trucks were destroyed. A lot of trucks after 15 months, for example, are breaking down. They need spare parts. So we need to be able to bring in spare parts. Generators aren't functioning anymore. We need to be able to bring in parts for the generators. One of the main clean water lines that runs from
Israel into Gaza was blown up, damaged in the few days before the ceasefire. That's in an area that's still considered a red zone. That's going to require a level of collaboration to be able to repair. And so the situation to be able to actually provide for the population extends so far beyond just allowing hundreds of trucks in. The mechanisms for moving all of that around, given the lack of vehicles, the lack of capacity to maintain and upkeep vehicles inside Gaza, is absolutely enormous. There's still big shortages when it comes to fuel because you need to be able to run the hospitals, the generators that are currently functioning, for the trucks themselves. And so on the one hand, we are seeing some positive signs, but on the other hand, there is so much more that has to be done. And I think it's very important to highlight that just because, trucks are getting in, that doesn't mean that more shouldn't be getting in at this stage. Additionally, we do need to be able to scale up our staff. And there's one more thing that I want to point out that's actually very important and that hasn't been a big part of the conversation: medical evacuations out of Gaza. There are already too many children and other civilians who have died due to either treatable illnesses or injuries that could have been or did not need to be life-threatening, or infections. Those medical evacuations need to start as soon as possible. They need to have started ages ago. It's not too late right now today to save some of the children who quite literally are going to lose life or limb if they don't get out of Gaza.
Indeed, very important to point that out. Ara, thank you very much for joining us. Huge challenges, no doubt, remain in Gaza. Ara Damon from Inara joining us there live from Brussels. Thank you for your time.
All right, I'm going to go to CNN talking about the North Korean soldiers that fell. I'm assuming they're talking about the Ukrainian war.
Dreaming of your business class for less? Business-class.com has you covered. Tell us your travel needs, and our agents available 24/7.
Russian troops unleashed a barrage of strikes across Ukraine overnight, leaving multiple people wounded.
In Kharkiv, crews worked to put out the flames after one attack lit private businesses on fire. Officials say at least 2 people were wounded in debris when it fell from a Russian drone used during the strike.
And in the Black Sea port of Odessa, officials say a Russian drone attack left at least 4 people wounded and damaged several buildings.
CNN has gained rare insight into the world of the North Korean troops fighting for Russia in its war against Ukraine. Key special forces say the soldiers from Pyongyang are using brutal, near suicidal tactics on the battlefield.
Nick Payton-Walsh sent this report from Sumy in Ukraine, and we warn you there are graphic images throughout.
These are the first images on the ground of the capture of North Korean troops by Ukraine. The soldier is injured, can hardly walk, but they spirit him away. Russian shelling intensifies to prevent capture. A wild prize pulled through their wires here from brutal fighting in Russia's Kursk region against a radicalized, near suicidal enemy, but one who'd never seen drones in war before. Special operations forces who fought them told us.
Всі вони молоді, свіжі, витривалі. Але знову ж таки підготовлені до реалій війни, в найкращому випадку 1980 року. Незважаючи на ті всі намагання закликати їх здатися в полон, вони будуть продовжувати йти в бій.
There's a unique challenge here. Ukraine wants to take captives, but the North Koreans seem to prefer to die. They shoot one here in caution. In the distressing images that follow, they pull one injured Korean's leg, then realize he has a grenade. He detonates under his chin. His last words were to scream North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's name, South Korean officials say. We meet the Ukrainians who show us the faked Russian military papers he was carrying, suggesting he was from Russia's Far East, and his military radio codes. Another paper, handwritten pledges of brainwashed courage.
미지와 괴뢰 쓰레기들에게 죽음의 철출을 내릴 날은 머지 않았다. 우리는 그들을 벌벌 떨게 하는 강력한 힘을 휘두른다. 세계여 지켜보라.
These notes from a soldier killed really a snapshot of the mindset inside the Hermit Kingdom. Declarations of loyalty, even tactics on how to fight Ukrainian drones, and also the suggestion that their presence here is about helping North Korea prepare for war. It's a remarkable insight, but also a reminder of how this biggest land war in Europe since the 40s is becoming more global. But also a glimpse of the fear they live under, how they inform on each other. Notes from an officer writing a critique of his fellow soldiers.
그는 물자를 훔치는 상상할 수 없을 정도의 불명예스러운 행위를 저질렀다. 그는 최고 사령관의 존엄을 지키지 못했고 개인의 이익을 최우선시했다.
Ukrainians filmed themselves taking DNA samples from the dead, which they say proved these were Korean. Ukraine says up to a third of the 12,000 here are already dead or injured, and more are coming. Amur shows us the newish AK-12 rifle and backpack Russia gave the North Koreans. They are overladen with ammo, he says, but sometimes no body armor or warm clothes and minimal water.
Известный случай, бойцы с Северной Кореи бежали просто без броников, часто не носят каски, что тоже для нас оказалось странным. Они типа очень маневренные и очень быстрые. Они очень быстро бегают, перемещаются, но их сложно словить, тем более дроном.
This thermal drone video shows that speed of attack. Below are 7 Ukrainians in a trench, facing 130 North Koreans above, who race at them and then try to flank them. Many died here, but they seem to be learning.
Тобто у них там є, ми бачили схема, як діяти у випадку, коли їх буде, скажімо так, атакувати дрон. Тобто це одна людина, яка приймає удар на себе, 2 або 3 інші людини, вони стоять збоку і безпосередньо вже стріляють. Тут варто відмітити, що дійсно стріляють вони досить добре. Це говорить про те, що вони готувалися.
Ready to die. Everybody checked for grenades, but not ready for this modern warfare. On a training mission, many won't survive. For a future war, not even a glimpse.
All right, Schumer is talking at the podium, speaking about the pardons for January 6th. Before we change to a new video, please help support my work by following my protocol. Get the supplements I have on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, all caps, discount 5, you get $5 off. Probiotics, really important. I have 2 versions of it. You can get it in the veggie cap or in the powdered form. I take the powdered form because I mix it with my food during my lunchtime with the other powders that I take. In addition, taking a good probiotic is really important. Why? It'll allow you to absorb your nutrients better. You'll get better absorption. Your metabolism will improve. You'll bring down inflammation in your gut. Your liver will function better. The communication between your gut and your liver will improve. The communication between your gut and your brain will improve. You'll have more mental acuity. You'll have better sleep. And what will happen is that your mood will be better. A lot of people don't realize irritability can be caused because of, just mental irritability could be caused by an inflamed gut. Also, depression can be caused by improper gut biome. So please go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the powdered probiotic or the veggie cap version. Take it every day, improve your gut. It's a major organ that needs attention. All right, so please go to my store and get the probiotic. Another thing that you should be doing for your body is to detoxify your body. Now, I have zeolite on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This helps to get rid of heavy metals, toxins, chemicals, forever chemicals. You've heard that in the news. Well, you can get rid of them, but you got to be careful on your exposure. Plus, you need to take zeolite. Now, how zeolite works is that it's a negatively charged molecule that will bind to positively charged molecules. Once it binds, it allows you to urinate it out in 6 to 8, 9 hours. All right. So taking it every day really helps with detoxifying your body. Now, how you do it if you're taking it every day throughout the whole year is to take 2 drops underneath your tongue, small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water. If you're taking it as a protocol and you're doing a detox for, once or twice a year, then the way you do it is just take 4 or 5 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, and then do that each day until the bottle's done, and do that protocol once or twice a year. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the zeolite, get the heavy metals, toxins, chemicals, the forever chemicals out of your body. But it's really important to also make sure your water's filtered. I use 0 water filtration system. It's a 5-layer filtration system. Stop eating processed foods. Try to eliminate those types of foods. Eat higher quality foods, and make sure that your environment is clean from different types of chemicals. A lot of cleaning supplies have chemicals that disrupt your endocrine system and your immune system. Try to use more natural cleaning agents. Some people store paint and other chemicals in their basement or in their garage. You're breathing that in over the year. That disrupts you. The things that people spray on their lawns disrupt the endocrine system and your immune system. So be mindful of that and try to reduce that exposure. And then with a better lifestyle, take the zeolite, and whatever exposure you do have in your body, you can get out. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. Lastly, NAC is a supplement that I've added to my protocol. Why? It boosts up glutathione levels. Glutathione is a strong antioxidant. It is synergistic with C60, and the more ways you soak up free radicals, the better you are in slowing down the aging process. In addition, NAC helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney. So a great way to detoxify your body on a regular basis is to take the zeolite and to take the NAC. Also, NAC helps to calm your nervous system. So a lot of people are in sympathetic. And that means basically you're in a fight or flight response and you have high cortisol levels. Well, that's all immunosuppressive. When you have high cortisol levels that are chronic, you're suppressing your immune system. Not only that, you're increasing your blood glucose levels and you're not sleeping as well. So you want to calm that down. You want to go into parasympathetic mode. And by going into parasympathetic mode, you're going to be able to have better cortisol levels, better glucose levels, better sleep, and you're going to have a lower resting heart rate. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the NAC, boost up your glutathione levels, soak up those free radicals in a different way, detoxify your liver and your kidney, and calm down your central nervous system. All right. Cash Jordan did a show that I want to play here. So he just posted it an hour ago.
Is this too sexy? I'll take it.
It's the ouch factor. Officials believe that the pointy panels will hurt people attempting to grab onto them to lift themselves over the turnstile without paying. The MTA began installing metal spikes like these on the turnstile handrails.
So New York City is making some changes to its subway system to try and rein in the rampant lawlessness and disorder taking place down here, and there will now be a big push to keep non-paying riders out of the subway with controversial new devices like these spiked barriers, which will go hand in hand with the involuntary commitment of those who are unable to care for themselves and may pose a danger to others. And although there's debate over how well these barriers are actually going to work, they're just one of the ways in which New York is trying to homeless-proof its subways.
You know what they say, if there's a will, there's a way, and some people will try just about anything to avoid paying that fare. You know, they can put on gloves to prevent those spikes from hitting their hands, wiggle through a loose space. You know, you just have to use your imagination, and that's why others believe this is just a waste of time and money.
A serial arsonist on the run this morning. Police releasing video of a man who set 4 fires in less than 2 hours. Cops say this disturbing video shows him setting fire to a pile of garbage on a J train at the Woodhaven Avenue stop.
Mayor Eric Adams says he's looking to end the revolving door that sees mentally ill homeless people land in a hospital only to be back on the subways screaming at passengers just a couple of weeks later.
Individuals that's been on the streets for many years.
Our goal is to give them the trust they need to come inside.
So I say it's time to crack down on the shameless fare evaders who just are so brazen. They just walk through, and others who are paying to feel like, why should I bother?
But can they stop it, Briella, with this new feature?
That is a good question. We're all waiting to find out, Deshani and Dan.
Man, these things are pretty sharp. And if you take your hand and you grab this thing and try to brace yourself in order to jump over this thing, it's gonna leave a mark. In fact, I've got a couple souvenirs from this thing right here. But it looks like athletic fare evaders and criminals are having no problem getting around these things, which must mean the only person this is gonna discourage from entering the subway is somebody who's disabled or physically unfit. But what most people don't know is this is only one type of anti-homeless architecture being built into New York City's subways. And it certainly isn't the only row of spikes you'll see at some of our modernized subway terminals, some of which also come with benches where you can sit but not relax. And in other stations, all the seating's been removed just to make sure nobody does anything except stand around and wait for the train. The city's also working on installing the brightest lights they can get their hands on to discourage people from taking a nap. And we've also got an army of outreach workers. Activists say only engage with the homeless to harass them, but in reality, maybe the only ones offering down and out New Yorkers a helping hand, a meal, and a place to stay, other than this rotting, disastrous public transit network. But the real controversy here is that all of these expensive anti-homeless contraptions, they're not going to solve any of the crime problems down here, and they're not going to help people who are a danger to themselves and others get off the streets, because they not only suck money away from our police department as well as programs that could actually help people. None of this stuff is backed up by a justice system that will allow the involuntary commitment of those who need long-term intervention for more than just a few days. On top of that, New York's also got laws that put violent criminals right back out on the streets instead of in jail when they rob or harm others, giving them an opportunity to strike again. Plus, as you're about to see, passive deterrents like these spikes here might actually be encouraging crime in our subway system instead of stopping it. So it should be pretty obvious that these new barriers, they're not at all about stopping fare evasion. People are fare evading right here while I'm filming this video. They don't care. And there's even a security guard who's employed at the station standing just on the other side of this gate who hasn't done anything about it. Maybe they're not here to bust fare evaders. But one thing's for sure, neither are these spikes, which means they can only be here to deter folks who might have trouble hopping over a turnstile or might be carrying armfuls of stuff. On top of that, these things might actually be making crime down here worse.
Some are optimistic about the MTA taking a new and somewhat drastic approach, but you know what they say, if there's a will, there's a way, and some people will try just about anything to avoid paying that fare. You know, they can put on gloves to prevent those spikes from hitting their hands and wiggle through a loose space. You know, you just have to use your imagination.
So before we get into how these devices aren't going to stop fare evasion and may actually be most effective in thwarting the mentally ill, it's important to understand this is exactly what the city knew was going to happen. We've already got fare evasion resistant gates. And the hope behind these barriers is that they would deter people from putting their hands on the sides, bracing themselves, and hopping over. The idea is that you can get a hand here, but you got to put your other hand up here to boost yourself over, and that body weight is going to put a lot of force on these spikes, and it's going to hurt, and you're not going to do it. But as the news pointed out, when there's a will, there's a way, and these gates can be easily defeated by people who either like pain or wear gloves or are just tall enough to hop over, as we've already seen. And they also do absolutely nothing to stop somebody from crawling underneath the gates, which happens all the time. But aside from giving us comical footage of former intramural athletes jumping these things, their mere presence here isn't just failing to deter crime, it's actually encouraging it, as the installation of evasion-resistant barriers can only be justified by the redeployment of our short-staffed police to other areas of the subway, which means that wherever you have these barriers, you have less police officers, because fare evasion's not supposed to be a problem here anymore. Only it is. But there's something very strange about these, because the city has a similar type of barrier that's been installed in other stations, just without the spikes on top, which don't work. I filmed people jumping over those, no problem, which means they knew that these weren't going to work, which means that these aren't actually here to stop fare evaders at all. In fact, they're even being installed along with other devices that may deter people from sleeping or trying to live in the subway.
The MTA is installing even more barriers in 100 additional stations. Also, bright LED lighting in every station by the end of the year. And the shameless toll evaders, fare evaders, will finally be stopped.
So we're not just getting the barriers, we're getting it in conjunction.
Now, you know that in Batman, the comic book, Gotham is dark and gloomy. So we have a governor that wants to make the subway system in Gotham bright and shiny. That's not going to stop it. You know, the problem is you got to round up the criminals, and depending on what the crime is, either ticket them or jail them.
With super bright LED lighting to replace these fluorescent lights. Now, let's be honest, new lights, that might make it feel safer down here, but it's certainly not going to discourage somebody from hopping over one of these gates or from robbing someone if they didn't get away with it. But if someone's living on the streets and trying to live in the subway because they are unable to care for themselves and need mental health services, bright lighting down here makes that more difficult. And while it's commendable that city leaders are finally realizing that it's bad for everybody in the subway if there are people down here who are a danger to themselves and others, spiked barriers and bright lights aren't a real solution to any of the problems we're facing down here. Because as we've already seen, not everybody who's down here or who is unhoused has a shopping cart or is
here's the
physically
problem.
unable to get
One big problem in New York is that it's the morality of the citizens. The morality is really low. So you have lots of people that are stealing. This is a form of stealing. Now, there's an added issue with the fare evaders, and that is the fee for the MTA is getting too expensive for people, for certain groups of people. It's getting to the point where they don't have the money to use the train.
Barriers like this, plus these do nothing to stop violence perpetrated by people who have a place to live and just want to steal things. However, as you're about to see, these gates are actually the latest in a long line of failed experiments the city has undertaken over the last couple of years, all of which were expensive pilot programs which supposedly had the goal of stopping fare evasion in some new way, which is ridiculous when you consider that the actual solution to fare evasion already exists in this very same station. And this solution to fare evasion, it's been around for decades, and it works so well that nobody gets through these things. Yet for some reason, the city is spending tons of money on a new way to stop fare evaders, which doesn't work.
It's the ouch factor. Officials believe that the pointy panels will hurt people attempting to grab onto them to lift themselves over the turnstile without paying.
So I say it's time to crack down on the shameless fare evaders who just are so brazen.
So this news report is talking about this station. Those are the spike barriers right there, but right over here, we have a fully rotating evasion-proof gate that you cannot jump over or crawl under. Look, this doesn't move. If you don't pay, there is no way you are going to get through this thing and get.
Hi, Eric.
I know. It's now good for a catch-up on your plan.
Yes, that was great.
You are going to get through this
problem
thing
with the turn.
on the train.
The problem with this turning door issue with the bars is that the throughput is low. So in stations that have especially during rush hour, a lot of throughput. It's just not efficient.
We've had these forever, and they're right next to the spikes. These gates are brutally effective, and they were first introduced back in the 1990s. And what's maddening is that in order to install these barriers as a solution to fare evasion, it had to be done right next to an actual solution to fare evasion. I'm telling you, this city is so progressive, and our ideas are so backwards that anything which would actually work to deter criminals, once we know it works, it is off the table, which is bad news because this study shows that a lot of people who evade the fares have warrants for other much worse offenses. And if someone's down here and they're a danger to themselves and they're possibly harming or assaulting others, chances are this may not be the first time something like that has happened. And chances are they're also not paying their subway fare to get on board the trains. Now, critics of these gates will say that they slow down the flow of traffic leaving and entering the subway, which to an extent is true. These are a little bit slower than the turnstiles, but the big win with these gates is that they actually do stop fare evasion and contribute to subway safety, because in a station that's only got these things, you could have less police at that station because less people could just get on the train and do whatever they want. In fact, if you look at how the city stations police in its subways, you'll notice that they're always stationed at entrances that have turnstiles. You'll never see a whole bunch of police patrolling an entrance that is just equipped with these old school gates. That's not necessary. And less police patrolling the entrances of our subway would mean there would be more police to ride the trains and keep New Yorkers safe. And as safety goes up in the subway, more people are going to want to ride the subway, and then it'll generate more money, and then there will be more money for aid workers to help get people off the streets who don't even know they need help to begin with, which is something spikes in or around the subway will never hope to fix. So the New York City subway remains the site of an ongoing humanitarian homelessness epidemic. Now, that epidemic is partially fueled by the rampant disorder that is allowed in the subway, yes, but it's also fueled by policies that do not allow those who actually need help to get it. But until they do, what you see happening down in the subways isn't going to change. And that's bad for just about everybody.
New Yorkers encounter this every day going to work and school. Mentally ill people terrorizing others on the train, clearly in need of help. Recently, there have been high-profile cases of psychosis turning into violence. City homeless outreach workers.
So the obvious problem with our subways,
the thing is that a lot of people think it's the mental illness that put them down this road of poverty, and I think for some people that's true, but I think the majority, it's because of poverty, it led them to mental psychosis and the stress of living on the streets. It's an economic issue.
So residence for people who are not able to take care of themselves. And for years, the city has just been allowing that to happen, not helping people who are down and out when they need it. And leaving someone in a tough state is the opposite of compassion. Something should be done, especially when you've got people in our subway who have been down here for years, unable to shower, who struggle to get meals, and may have health conditions that either disable or imperil them. On top of that, they might be using items that are definitely making their predicament worse. But the issue is that our laws do not allow them to get any meaningful help. And this opinion piece rightly criticizes New York's progressive mentality when it comes to helping the mentally ill, because for a long time, that mentality has been to leave people to their own devices, because after all, they're in a public space. And if someone wants to be a danger to themselves or others, what right do privileged normies with jobs and a family have to complain about it? And how dare they say that the presence of an unstable person acting erratically makes them feel unsafe? But now it seems people are finally getting on board with the idea that that attitude is the problem and is part of the reason why the subway is the way that it is in 2025.
Individuals has been on the streets for many years, but he says too often he'll bring someone to a hospital for counseling and treatment and see them right back on the trains a few weeks later. Now, Mayor Eric Adams is working to fill the void with a 100-bed treatment facility for people with severe mental illness who've recently been discharged.
So, finally, steps are being made to help those who can't help themselves. But the problem with this approach is that we can build whatever type of facility we want that's supposed to help people. If people are not obligated to use that facility or never end up there, how are they actually going to get the help they need? And oftentimes oftentimes the best an outreach worker can do is ask somebody if they want to leave the subway, and when they're told no, move on. And all over the news for the last several weeks, we've been seeing what happens when people who are unstable are allowed to do whatever they want down here. And this idea of another serial arsonist roaming the subway is incredibly frightening. You realize there are not fire extinguishers down here, and there's not like an FDNY firehouse down here either. There's not. And this is just another example of somebody who probably should be somewhere else, even if they don't want to go, so that they're not injuring folks down here. But now people are starting to realize that rules that release people after a very short stint in a treatment facility aren't going to do anything to help those who need a lot of help on a long-term basis.
But in response to the recent unrest underground, it's police officers, not mental health workers, who will be surged into the subways overnight. We asked if the deployments would include additional social workers and medical professionals. So is that going to be part of the overnight surge?
No. Having an outreach worker partnering with each police officer is not realistic.
The mayor says officers will need to do
so. New York City's in a tough spot. Riders are terrified of the subway, and they should be. If you come down here and you got your noise-canceling headphones on and you're not paying attention and you don't have a care in the world, that attitude could put you at risk. And the police won't be down here to arrest the homeless. Instead, they'll tell people who are lounging about to move along, as that's a violation of MTA rules. And they'll have the ability to contact outreach teams if they meet somebody who's in dire need of assistance, can't walk, or is suffering in some way. And to be honest with you, this new plan of having officers.
Now, I'm all about synchronicity and juxtaposition. So CNN just posted an article, right? And I get it through my notifications. The doomsday clock reveals how close humanity may be to total annihilation. Back to Gotham.
But the subway and having them ride the trains, this is something New Yorkers have been asking for a long time. We all know that when something goes wrong, it usually goes wrong in the absence of law enforcement in a confined space that nobody can escape from. But the issue is our police face an uphill battle in this fight against crime, because even with cops on every train in service, anyone they arrest likely won't be held in jail for their behavior, as assaults and robberies have been decriminalized by our progressive lawmakers who seem content to let those crimes remain misdemeanors, which is what leaves us with a subway system that can never be fixed, which is ridiculous once you realize we've got solutions to stop fare evasion that are decades old, but we don't want to use them for some reason. Instead, we'd rather implement features that might stop somebody who's mentally unwell or disabled from entering the subway without paying, while allowing the very same criminals everyone's afraid of to come down here whenever they feel like it. And all these expensive programs do is siphon money from outreach workers who could be down here contacting those who need help. What do you think about the city's progressive push to install barriers and spikes in some cases to deter certain types of fare evasion? Are these a good plan, a stupid plan, or are these parts of the problem? Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.
God just needs an asteroid to hit New York. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Boost up your immune system by getting the magnesium and zinc. This magnesium and zinc supplement is great to take every day. If you're not feeling well during the cold season, take a double dose. Take one in the morning, take one in the evening. Drink it with filtered water. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc. I also have lozenges and drops for the cold season and for the allergy season. The moment you have an irritation, you want to mitigate that, boost up your immune system with the lozenges and the drops that I have. Get a few bags of elderberry zinc and Manuka honey lozenges. They're in a 21 count. Get a couple bags or a few bags for your household for the cold season and for the allergy season that will be coming up in the spring. Be prepared. The moment you have that irritation, mitigate that, neutralize it right away. Have this in your home and at your work. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Manuka honey lozenges and the elderberry zinc lozenges. Okay, let's go to live now. The Senate Democrats are speaking on President Trump's agenda.
successfully execute the presidency of the United States. That means to execute the laws that are passed by Congress, not edicts passed by the Office of Management and Budget. So I hope and believe that our colleagues on all sides of the aisle will realize that this is not a political discussion. This is not a programmatic discussion. This is an institutional discussion that goes to the viability and authority and expertise and work that's based upon Article 3 of the Constitution. This is just a usurpation of authority. As I say, I believe, I've never seen anything quite like this in American history. Richard Nixon tried to do it. The Congress passed a specific statute, which has been the concept, the basis of which has been upheld by the Supreme Court in Train versus New York. And to assert this power really renders the power of Congress a nullity. And as I say, I hope members of both sides of the aisle will realize this and stand up for the institution. James Madison said the interests of the individuals will enable them or empower them to stand up for the interests of the institution. And if this stands, this will redound to the detriment of both parties, whichever party is in charge. Imagine for a moment if Joe Biden did this, there was a Republican Senate, Republican Congress, and they passed a statute saying we want to fund Head Start, and Joe Biden said, no, I don't like Head Start, I'd rather put the money over here. We'd be hearing a lot of reaction, and the reaction should come from both sides. So as someone who has worked in the law and worked with the Constitution for many, many years, I was stunned last night to see this order. I thought first it was a production of The Onion because it's so grossly, blatantly unconstitutional and threatening to the foundation of the separation of powers under the Constitution. Thanks, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Senator, can you lay out some of the next legal steps? Senator Schumer mentioned the lawsuit. What do you see as the next steps?
Obviously, we're like 12 hours into this, and we have multiple state attorney generals as well as others who are looking at what our next steps can be in the courts. And I would say to all of the Republicans, we didn't come here to go through a bunch of court orders about current law. We came here to fight for our constituents, to make sure that they had the basic things that they needed every single day, including cancer research, roads and bridges built, the community safe, police officers on the street that are protected, and we're going to keep fighting for it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we were just listening in there as the Senate Democrats were speaking on President Donald Trump's agenda. Now, this was presented to us that they would be speaking on President Donald Trump's pardons to 1,500 January 6th Capitol rioters, but it does appear that they were speaking more about the first week of President Trump's term. I do want to go to a 2-minute break, but on the other side, we are going to pivot back to this live event that we were showing you just a short time ago here, and this is a hearing, a Senate hearing discussing the impacts of the Panama Canal on U.S. trade and national security. That is still ongoing. So let's go away for that 2-minute break and we'll bring this to you on the other side.
All right, I want to go to CNN about this freezing of financial assistance. White House orders freeze on all federal financial assistance. Whatever that means.
Hey, I'm Stephen Kars, co-founder of King of Pops. Zero makes it super easy to stay on top of your cash flow. It sometimes answers questions that you don't know that you should be asking, and it puts the right information in front of you at the right time.
This is the Emirates Premium Economy Suite. Economy. Perhaps they need to call it something else.
Breaking this morning is sweeping, unprecedented order that puts a pause to all federal grants and loans at 5 p.m. today. This could be trillions of dollars.
Federal
funding
grants and
impacts programs and people in the United States and around the world, things like disaster aid, aid for medical charities, food assistance programs. This all came in a 2-page memo that kind of lacks clarity on exactly how this should be implemented. It has also sparked new debates about constitutionality. A lot of questions here. Let's get right to the White House for CNN's Elena Train, who I know has been digging on this. Elena.
That's right. This is really the latest stunning use of power from President Donald Trump's White House, just 8 days now into his new administration. And look, this internal memo that was circulated by the White House Office of Management and Budget says that all federal grants and loans will be halted starting at 5 p.m. today, potentially impacting trillions of dollars in spending, and also potentially impacting millions of Americans who rely on this type of funding. Now, I said, this is expected to take effect at 5 p.m. today. That means a lot of these organizations were given less than 24 hours notice of this change, and they had until February 10th to submit reports to the budget.
This is really important. Wait, I need to read this little slide that they have on the video here. All right, federal aid pause takes effect at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, so that's today. Impacted grants, loans, and other aid mentioned in memo, foreign aid, DEI, Green New Deal, and woke gender ideology. Not impacted. Social Security, Medicare, and assistance provided directly to individuals. What they're basically doing is they're cutting the whole woke, ultra-lib agenda and having the federal government pay for it. So Trump's administration shutting down that ultra-lib agenda. And he's still supporting people that are in need, that are on Social Security, Medicare, direct assistance from the federal government. So there's no funny games going on with the states. What he just did was actually genius, but the way it's going to be spun in the media is that he doesn't care about people. What Trump did was genius to destroy the ultra-lib agenda.
Hours notice of this change, and they had until February 10th to submit reports to the budget office at the White House, and from there, seeking clarity on how this will move forward. Now, one thing that is clear is that the freeze on this is something that the budget office is saying is for organizations that don't necessarily align with Donald Trump's views. I want to read to you what Matthew Vaith, the acting director of the Office of Management and Budget, said in an internal memo. He said, quote, "The use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars that does not improve the day-to-day lives of those we serve." Now, to be clear, John, this memo does specify that Social Security and Medicare benefits are not going to be affected by this freeze. Also, individuals who receive these different loans directly will not be impacted. However, hundreds of different federal payouts are now in jeopardy. All from
the ultra libs and their agenda have two things. One, they're pushing a certain ultra liberal agenda that is weakening God, country, and family. The other thing is that by having these programs, there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of inefficiency and waste of taxpayer money. And certain people that are in high positions at the city level, state level, maybe even the federal level, are on the take. They make money through these programs. So what Trump's doing is shutting that down. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But you'll have the media saying, oh, you know what? Trump is such a bad guy because his agenda is not aligned with our ultra-liberal agenda. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Guess what? He won the election. He won at the Electoral College and at the popular vote level. And Americans don't want the ultra-liberal agenda, period.
So by cutting this off, by cutting off the ultra-liberal agenda, by stopping these crazy grant programs and funding programs, he's setting in motion to stopping reparations. Now, I guarantee you that you're not hearing that from anybody. But that's what he just did. He shot over the bow on those ultra-libs that are pushing reparations. He just shot over the bow of their boat, saying, this ain't going to happen. Because the conduit to start the reparations was to, keep on pushing this ultra-liberal agenda and the funding mechanism, giving special provisions for home ownership, giving special provisions of school assistance and retraining, and then all of a sudden it gets to the point where there is special tax provisions where if you're a certain race and you fall into the category of reparations, you fill out your taxes and you'll have a lower tax rate because you'll get some sort of tax benefit. He's setting in motion the shutting down of this ultra-liberal agenda that's pushing reparations. Now, I was appalled last year, and what's interesting is that Black History Month, I think, is coming up, but I was appalled last year on seeing a representative that was contracted to help with Governor Hochul in New York on pushing reparations in the state of New York. The same thing was happening in California. So there are rumblings within the state legislatures at the governorship level of these blue states to push reparations. Now, do you think that's fair? Do you think that's fair? I don't think that's fair. There's no one alive that is directly affected by picking cotton in the 1860s. What about people that have immigrated to America after the Civil War or just recently? Why should they be taxed to have to pay for reparations? And another mechanism that they wanted to use, instead of just these social benefits and tax rebate type stuff, is to issue bonds that are tied to getting cash flows from the financial market to set up a fund to pay for reparations. So this is shutting that down. It's setting in motion to be able to shut down reparations.
These community projects, all of those could be impacted by this move. Now, we've heard a lot of top Democrats sounding the alarm on this. We heard just this morning from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker,
Of course, the Democrats are going to sound the alarm. They're all about ultra-liberalism. They're all about being on the take. They're all about placating to a constituency, aka blacks. They're trying to placate to them and waive that whole reparation thing. Now, I personally think, based on the concept of what President Lincoln said when the war ended, that there isn't going to be retribution. The North and the South there's not going to be retribution for the war. The war is over and it's all about reconstruction. And with that concept, that means everything's water under the bridge, and now it's about moving the country forward and building skill sets and being plugged in and being productive. But what happens, you have a big part of the society that doesn't want to be productive. You have a big part of the society that wants a handout. And they're finding excuses for the handout. And that there's a group in the United States that's about 14 to 16% of the population. Within that 14 or 16% of the population, maybe half, maybe a little less than half, are pushing the reparations.
This is what he had to say. He posted on X, quote, "The U.S. Constitution does not grant the president this unilateral authority. In Illinois, we will stand against unlawful actions that would harm millions of working families, children, and seniors." Now, we also heard from people on Capitol Hill who are arguing, again, that
how is it going to hurt a senior? How is that hurting a senior? Their Medicare isn't, and Medicaid isn't going to be affected. And direct assistance is not being affected. What it is that they're demonizing Trump because the ultra-libs don't like someone taking away their woke policies. And the woke policies is what weakened America. Because by weakening the pillars, God, country, and family, you don't really have a productive society. You have socialism, you have communism, you have an unproductive society. And a lot of people on the take, a lot of corruption.
Have the authority to do this. This is what Senator Chuck Schumer said in a statement last night. He said, quote, "Congress approved these investments and they are not optional. They are the law." So a lot of questions, as you can tell, about whether.
So let me get this straight. If Congress decides to pass an egregious situation that makes the country worse off, that the executive branch shouldn't be pushing back? What about the waste? We have a national security issue. Our debt is a national security issue. We have to get our house in order to be prosperous and be able to be moving on into the new era. And this woke agenda, this is all about woke agenda. This is not about making America first. This is not about making America better. Why do we need to have these woke agendas? Why? Well, we passed it in Congress. That doesn't mean it's good for the country. Well, we passed it in Congress. Chuck Schumer is a real piece of shit. Not just a little piece of shit, like a real big piece of shit. Like, big piece of shit.
This is something the White House is actually able to do. Now, some experts have said that the president does have the authority, at least temporarily, to put a pause on this type of funding. But again, we really do have to see the details of this because the scope and scale of this directive is so broad and impacts so many different people that there's going to be a lot of questions on this. Now, we do plan to hear from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, later today at 1 p.m. I expect she's going to get a lot of questions on this, John.
Or first, I think, White House press conference, and I do expect this will be a major topic there. Lantern, great to have you all with us this morning. Thank you very much. With us now, his defense attorney and former federal prosecutor Shan Wu. And you heard Elena talk about the legal questions here that stem from, say, the Constitution, which I think everyone knows puts the power to tax and spend in the hands of Congress. It's the spending clause that Congress shall have the power to lay taxes and collect them, duties, imposts, excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. That is typically been meant to mean that Congress spends, right?
Right. And not only is there a constitutional issue, but there's also a law that was meant to address this, which does address it, the Impoundment Act. And this, on its face, clearly violates that. I mean, the 45 days was just mentioned within the Impoundment Act allows for some temporary clauses, but the emphasis is on the transparency being required to Congress, that the executive branch would have to set forth the exact reasons. And, you know, the reasons they gave this memo is just a bunch of campaign slogans like, you know, Marxist, anti-Marxist things, anti-trans issues, and it's very flimsy. I mean, on its face, I think what's interesting, John, is it sounds like it's kind of more, you know, meat the base, but underneath that is really this enormous expansion, continued expansion of the unitary executive theory, giving the president as much power as possible. So it's definitely headed towards
A huge potential expansion of power here. I'm glad you brought up the Impoundment Act of 1974, because we can look at that, the Impoundment Control Act, we can look at that one of two ways here, whether or not it inhibits the president, whether or not it's constitutional. But one thing is clear is that Donald Trump knows it exists. He knows there are limitations on what presidents can do in terms of not spending. Listen to this. He put out a video like a year and a half ago on this.
Is your marketing tech stack stuck in the past?
Indeed it is. Upgrade to AppsFlyer, the world's leading MMD.
Thomas Jefferson famously used this power, as did many other presidents, until it was wrongfully curtailed by the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. Not a very good act.
Now again, in this, it's clear he doesn't like the act, but I imagine in a
1974. Now, what was going on? All right. You're talking about a restructuring of global. This is all about this whole globalization thing, globalism, and the weakening of the executive branch. Because by weakening the executive branch, and you have the puppet masters controlling Congress, what happens is that you can weaken the country. And this is why I keep on saying that ultra-liberal agendas that weaken the God, country, and family pillars weakens the society, weakens the country to the point where it's easy to take control and have it integrated into an uber government, a one world order. All right. The executive branch can be a way to stop that. But if you weaken the powers of the executive branch, now we don't want kings. We don't want absolute authority by the executive branch. That's wrong. That's just, we don't want that. Right? But the thing is that Congress has been trying to erode the Constitution, the Constitution, constitutional authority, let's say, of the executive branch by doing these new bills or new laws. Now, 74, what was going on in 74? Oh, that was like Watergate, and that was demonizing the Republican Party, and that was, around that time was when Nixon got out of Vietnam. All right, so we got problems here. We got to really start thinking about, well, wait a minute here. Why is Congress making these laws? Is it really because of out of control executive branch? Or is it because it is a backdoor for a weakening of the country, so the country gets integrated into a new world order? It's getting more integrated with the UN. It's not by accident that Trump is saying, "Hey, we don't want to be we don't want to be part of WHO. We don't want to be a part of the UN. We don't want to be beholden to a international community that is antithetical to our ideals." But you have the liberals wanting that integration. The liberals literally want to destroy this country. Now, my memory serves me. I could be wrong, but I believe that this, I'd have to look it up. But I thought he was the lawyer for Bush Jr. But I need to look that up. There might be another Asian lawyer that was tied to the White House. He may have been part of Obama's administration, but I want to look that up before I say it. But I thought he was the lawyer for Bush Jr.
One could say he knows it's there.
Oh, that's absolutely right. Again, the Trump administration, in my view, likes the legalities of much earlier times. So going back to Jefferson, and that was enacted during President Nixon's period. And some people will find that Nixon only signed it because he was too enmeshed in the Watergate scandal to really be able to object to it. But certainly in the court, they're going to say that he's violating that. And unquestionably, what the Trump folks are going to argue is that the act itself is unconstitutional. So that's good. That will head directly to the Supreme Court. And despite the extreme conservative majority right now, this is a pretty questionable one because it's a classic separation of powers issue.
It's a classic separation of powers. When Congress decides to do something, particularly if you look at this memo, which the White House put out, it's not saying we want to spend the money on this cause that Congress voted on in a different way or a certain way. It says that we just don't like what Congress decided to do. So that's going against an actual law passed by a majority in Congress and signed by a president, correct?
No, that's exactly right. And that's why under the act processes, they would need to be far more specific than this general idea of, oh, we just think that generally everything's heading in the wrong direction, so we're not giving out any money until we approve it, make sure it goes through our filters. But you can't do that. I mean, this is money that's already been appropriated, and the damage is enormous. I mean, even this issue about not going to individuals is fuzzy, because while they're exempting that on its face, there's money that is federal money goes to state agencies to distribute to individuals. So it's very easy to see how it really wipes out a lot of benefits for individuals too.
Again, possible that he does have some authority to do it temporarily. Whether or not he intends this to be temporary, we will see. How far it goes from here, also to be determined. Shamu, thank you so much for explaining.
I don't know. I think that what Trump's doing is right. Don't stop wasting taxpayer money on stupid stuff, even if Congress wants that. You know, the thing is that this is how the Democratic Party gets votes. They push these agendas, they spend wastefully, and they go, oh, great, we're going to vote for the Democrat. You know what? My country is going to hell because of blue-haired liberals. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the ashwagandha root and the turmeric and lignans. All right, these supplements is a stack. All right, the lignans, the ashwagandha, and the turmeric as a stack is one of the pillars that I was mentioning earlier. That pillar is to bring down inflammation and to boost up your immune system. So ashwagandha root brings down your blood glucose levels, controls your cortisol levels, brings down inflammation. Turmeric is an antioxidant, so it's soaking up free radicals, and it also brings down inflammation. And lignans is a powder. You mix it with soft foods or with filtered water, and take that every day, and that will bring down inflammation and soak up free radicals, and also improve your endocrine system. So when you take these together, you're really targeting and bringing down those pro-inflammatory cytokines. All right. Now, when you take these together, not only are you boosting your immune system, but you're also helping with your cardiovascular system, because vascularly, if you have inflammation, you're increasing the chances of plaque buildup. And by bringing down that inflammation, and you do that consistently with some other supplements, you can actually reduce plaque, not just reduce the buildup of additional plaque, but you will be able to reduce plaque. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, bring down inflammation, boost up your immune system, and help with your cardiovascular system by stacking ashwagandha root, the turmeric, and the lignans together. This is a great stack. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now, I try to help with people saying, hey, you know, they don't have a lot of money and they can't get all the supplements. I understand people's cash flow issues. I have the discount 5 that you can use on any order. It's discount 5, all caps, and number 5. And I've built up these different boxes, the longevity boxes and the anti-aging boxes, where the items that are in the box are cheaper when you buy it in a box than if you buy them individually on the store. So there's 2 ways to save money. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, follow my protocol. Maybe you can't afford everything I do. Maybe you can, but take charge of your health. It's a holistic approach. It's about proper supplementation, proper diet, proper exercise, proper balancing, proper stretching, proper sleep. You got to train your mind, proper mindfulness. When you do this together, you can slow down the aging process and get healthy. 2 big diseases that are costing billions and billions and billions of dollars in healthcare costs are diabetes and heart disease in the United States. And I just gave you, throughout this transmission, the solution to lowering healthcare costs by taking a holistic approach and changing your lifestyle with all these different modalities. Proper supplementation, proper diet, proper exercise, and all these other things holistically can mitigate many of the diseases that the United States, the chronic diseases that the United States has. The two big ones, diabetes and heart disease. It's up to you to listen, but I just gave the solution to saving money at the societal level. Now, at your personal level, you'll spend more money when you're in later years, when you have disease, trying to control your heart disease, trying to control your diabetes. You will spend more money in your geriatric years than this maintenance protocol. And the added benefit of the maintenance protocol is that you're going to have more vitality in your geriatric years. You don't follow, you're not going to have the vitality, and it's going to cost you more because now you're on pharmacopoeia. Do you really want to be on pharmacopoeia? Or do you want to take my advice and have vitality? It's up to you. Now, again, I'm older than Alex Jones. Alex Jones looks a decade and a half older than I am. Or more than that, all right? So, you know, the proof's in the pudding. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Follow my protocol. It fucking works. All right. This is interesting. You know what? Maybe. I'm not sure if I should play that video or not. I think I will. All right. I've never seen this guy before. His name's Dave Garage. And he's an ex-Microsoft guy. All right. He's going to explain DeepSeek R1. It's not that long of a video, so let's play it. I think it'll be interesting.
When you can set up reliable Spectrum internet in minutes, you can feel at home in minutes. You're not home until you're connected. Get Spectrum.
This development has been described as nothing less than a Sputnik moment by Mark Andreessen, and for good reason. Just as the launch of Sputnik challenged assumptions about American technological dominance in the 20th century, DeepSeek R1 is forcing a reckoning in the 21st. For years, many believed that the race for AI supremacy was firmly in the hands of the established players like OpenAI and Anthropic. But with this breakthrough, a new competitor has not just entered the field, they've also seriously outpaced expectations. If you care about the future of AI innovation and global technological competition, you'll want to understand what DeepSeek R1 is, why it matters, whether it's just a giant psyop, and what it means for the world at large. Let's dive in. To set the stage, here's the part that really upset the industry and sent the stocks of companies like NVIDIA and Microsoft reeling. Not only does DeepSeek R1 meet or exceed the performance of the best American AI models like OpenAI's O1, they did it on the cheap, reportedly for under $6 million. And when you compare that to the tens of billions already invested, if not more, here to achieve similar results, not to mention the $500 billion discussion around Stargate, it's cause for alarm. Because not only does China claim to have done it cheaply, but they reportedly did it without access to the latest of NVIDIA's chips. If true, it's akin to building a Ferrari in your garage out of spare Chevy parts. And if you can throw together a Ferrari in your shop on your own, and it's really just as good as a regular Ferrari, what do you think that does to Ferrari prices? So it's a little bit like that. And just what is DeepSeek R1? It's a new language model designed to offer performance that punches above its weight. Trained on a smaller scale, but still capable of answering questions, generating text, and understanding context. And what sets it apart isn't just the capabilities, but the way that it's been built. DeepSeek is designed to be cheap, efficient, and surprisingly resourceful. leveraging larger foundational AIs like OpenAI's GPT-4 or Meta's Llama as scaffolding to create something much larger. Let's unpack that. Because at its core, DeepSeek R1 is a distilled language model. When you train a large AI model, you end up with something massive, hundreds of billions, if not a trillion parameters, consuming terabytes of data and requiring a data center's worth of GPUs just to function. But what if you need all that power for most tasks? And that's where the idea of distillation comes in. You take a larger model, like a GPT-4 or the 671 billion parameter behemoth R1, and you use it to train the smaller ones. It's like a master craftsman teaching an apprentice. You don't need the apprentice to know everything, just enough to do the actual job really well. DeepSeek R1 takes this approach to an extreme. By using larger models to guide its training, DeepSeek creators have managed to compress the knowledge and reasoning capabilities of much bigger systems into something far smaller and more lightweight. The result? A model that doesn't need massive data centers to operate. You can run these smaller variants on a decent consumer-grade CPU or even a beefy laptop, and that's a game changer. But how does this work? Well, it's a bit like teaching by example. Let's say you have a large model that knows everything about astrophysics, Shakespeare, and Python coding. And instead of trying to replicate that raw computational power, DeepSeek R1 is trying to mimic the outputs of the larger model for a wide range of questions and scenarios. By carefully selecting examples and iterating over the training process, you can teach the smaller model to produce similar answers without needing to store all that raw information itself. It's kind of like copying the answers without the entire library. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Because DeepSeek didn't just rely on a single large model for the process. It used multiple AIs, including some open source ones like Meta's Llama, to provide diverse perspectives and solutions during the training. Thinking of it as assembling like a panel of experts to train one exceptionally bright student. By combining insights from different architectures and data sets, DeepSeek R1 achieves a level of robustness and adaptability that's rare in such a small model. It's too early to draw very many conclusions, but the open source nature of the model means that any biases or filters built into the model should be discoverable in the publicly available weights, which is a fancy way of saying that it's hard to hide that stuff when the model is open source. In fact, one of my first tests was to ask DeepSeek what famous photo depicts a man standing in front of a line of tanks. It correctly answered the Tiananmen Square protests, the significance of the photo, who took it, and even the censorship issues surrounding it. Of course, the online version of DeepSeek may be completely different because I'm running it offline locally. And who knows what version I get within China, but the public version that you can download seems solid and reliable. So why does all this matter? Well, for one, it dramatically lowers the barrier to entry for AI. Instead of requiring massive infrastructure and your own nuclear power plant to deploy a large language model, you could potentially get by with a much smaller setup. That's good news for smaller companies, research labs, or even hobbyists looking to experiment with AI without breaking the bank. In fact, I'm running it on our AMD Threadripper that's equipped with an NVIDIA RTX 6080 GPU that has 48 gigabytes of VRAM. And I can run the very largest 671 billion parameter model, and it still generates more than 4 tokens per second. And even the 32 billion version runs, I say, on my MacBook Pro, and the smaller ones run down to the Aura Nano for $249. But there's a catch. Building something on the cheap has some risks. For starters, smaller models often struggle with the breadth and depth of knowledge that the larger ones have. They're more prone to hallucinations, generating confident but incorrect responses sometimes, and they might not be as good at handling highly specialized or nuanced queries. Additionally, because these smaller models rely on training data from the larger ones, they're only as good as their teachers. So for errors or biases in the large models that they train on, those issues can trickle down into the smaller ones. And then there's the issue of scaling. DeepSeek's efficiency is impressive, but it also highlights the trade-offs involved. By focusing on cost and accessibility, DeepSeek R1 might not compete directly with the biggest players in terms of cutting-edge capabilities. Instead, it carves out an important niche for itself as a practical, cost-effective alternative. In some ways, this approach reminds me a bit of the early days of personal computing. Back then, you had massive mainframes dominating the industry, and then along came these scrappy little PCs that couldn't quite do everything but were good enough for a lot of the work. Fast forward a few decades, and the PC revolutionized computing. DeepSeek might not be GPT-5, but it could pave the way for a more democratized AI landscape where advanced tools aren't confined to a handful of tech giants. The implications here are huge. Imagine AI models tailored to specific industries, running on local hardware for privacy and control, or even embedded in devices like smartphones and smart home hubs. The idea of having your own personal AI assistant, one that doesn't rely on a massive cloud backend, suddenly feels a lot more attainable. Of course, the road ahead isn't without its challenges. DeepSeek and models like it must prove that they can handle real-world tasks reliably, scale effectively, and continue to innovate in a space dominated so far by much larger competitors. But if there's one thing we've learned from the history of technology, it's that innovation doesn't always come from the biggest players. Sometimes all it takes is a fresh perspective and a willingness, or sometimes a necessity, to do things differently. DeepSeek R1 signals that China is not just a participant in the global AI race, but a formidable competitor capable of producing cutting-edge open-source models. For American AI companies like OpenAI, Google, DeepMind, and Anthropic, this creates a dual challenge: maintaining technological leadership and justifying the price premium in the face of increasingly capable, cost-effective alternatives. So what are the implications for American AI? Well, open-source models like DeepSeek R1 allow developers worldwide to innovate at lower cost. This could undermine the competitive advantage of proprietary models, particularly in areas like research and small to medium enterprise adoption. U.S. companies that rely heavily on subscription or API-based revenue could feel the squeeze, potentially dampening investor enthusiasm. The release of DeepSeek R1 as open source software also democratizes access to powerful AI capabilities. Companies and governments around the world can build upon its foundation without the licensing fears or the restrictions imposed by U.S. firms. This could accelerate AI adoption globally, but reduce demand for U.S. developed models, impacting revenue streams for firms like OpenAI and Google Cloud. In the stock market, companies heavily reliant on AI licensing, cloud infrastructure, NVIDIA's chips, or API integrations could face downward pressure as investors factor in lower projected growth or increased competition. Now, in the intro, I made a little side reference to the potential of this PSYOP angle. And while I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist myself, some have argued that perhaps we should not take the Chinese at their word when it comes to how the model was produced. If it really was produced on second-tier hardware for just a few $1 million, it's major. But some argue that perhaps China invested heavily at the state level to assist, hoping to upset the status quo in America by making what is supposed to be very hard look supposedly cheap and easy. But only time will tell. So that's DeepSeek R1 in a nutshell. A scrappy little AI punching above its weight, built using clever techniques and designed to make advanced AI accessible to more people than ever before. Not perfect, it's not trying to be, but it's a fascinating glimpse into what the future of AI might look like. Lightweight, efficient, and a little rough around the edges, but full of potential. Now, if you found this little explainer on DeepSeek to be any combination of informative or...
I think that was a good explanation of DeepSeek R1. You know what's interesting is it's very similar to looking at infrastructure in a society. All right, let's say we're going out the 50,000 foot level. For the society to be efficient, you have to have certain works like road construction, bridges, right? Well, once you have those structures in place, people can move from one point to another quicker, right? The society is more efficient. Something very similar is happening with AI. You have to build these very large frontier models that take a lot of effort, but then you can, once that's out there, you can leverage that to build on other things. So it's kind of like the infrastructure of a society. The frontier model is maybe an analog to the road system in a way, right? And that you can leverage that frontier model to be able to create other models, to be able to be more domain specific in your particular industry, right? But you don't need the big servers to do it because you're leveraging a frontier model that used all that capability. So piggybacking this, I think is a smart idea, I think. But the question is how truthful is DeepSeek really with its research? No one really knows. But if it's true, it's a huge game changer. And in the near future, it's going to be the ones that create silicon, the silicon chips. Apple is going to benefit from it. All right. These hardware makers are going to benefit from it. So once we're still at AI, true AI computation is still at the large server level. Very similar to mainframe computers before the PC, right? But once that barrier breaks and it's true PC level, AI generation, it's going to be a huge game changer. That's the huge game changer. And you're going to have a lot of different AI species in the ecosystem after that. Okay. With that, I mean, even artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's a fine line between what, you know, what is artificial intelligence and what is machine learning. But even with the machine learning and artificial intelligence, narrow AI, that's been in the works for more than a decade in finance. The training models are the price, you know, price and market data to train a model to be able to trade, to train an agent to be able to be a short seller or, you know, or a long buyer, right? You know, so you can train these agents to buy, sell a certain commodity with all the market telemetry, all the market data for that particular commodity or that particular asset class. And it gets really interesting when you start building correlation studies and the AI learns the correlation studies. So, you know, this has been people in finance, because of the high high frequency of data, was a perfect research environment to develop machine learning algorithms and narrow AI. So this is nothing new, and they were doing it all local. They were running on MATLAB, and they were, you know, researchers that are building these things are, you know, training their AI models, you know, off of just market data, you know, and it's pretty impressive. But it was very narrow. So let me switch to Bloomberg here for a sec. See what Bloomberg has to say.
Happening in the market overall is this, I think, pent up demand for new projects. I think a lot of people, because of COVID and because of, you know, federal monies that were given to them that have now sort of burned off, you can see this pent up demand to come with your new project at this point coming to the market.
One of the things that I think we just observed today is kind of the natural disasters and how will that impact the municipal bond market? From your perspective, how do you think that's going to play out? Because it seems to be a thing.
It's a real issue.
Yeah.
So think about what BAM does. We spend 99% of our time looking at things that happen not very frequently. One of the things we focus on are natural disasters. So if you think about hurricanes, floods, earthquake risk, and right now wildfires, these are all things that we incorporate into our underwriting process. We evaluate them, and it affects what we guarantee based upon what we think that particular risk is. So we turn deals down if we find that they're in an area that's more prone to exposure to these particular kinds of natural disasters. And we use a lot of analytical tools that are available and some that we've developed ourselves to measure what that severity is. So if you look at Los Angeles, for example, I mean, if you're looking at credits that are county-wide or city-wide in Los Angeles, it's a really big area. You know, the county is 100 square miles, and so so even though there's been a couple of terrible fires there, the overall, you know, stability of the county and the city are still quite strong, and they'll have the ability to sort of address this and overcome it.
I can see that being a very quickly evolving, changing topic that must be very difficult to assess.
I think that is true. But remember, the way we look at credit risks, we are guaranteeing the bonds till the last payment is made. So if you have 30-year bonds, the way we look at credit risk is not this sort of shorter cycle.
Sure.
We're looking for, and one of the great strengths of municipal finance is that the issuers and ourselves and the market in itself are aligned, so that you know, the city of Pittsburgh or the city.
Okay, I'm going to go to Fox News. They just posted 10 minutes ago, NYC ICE raids underway with DHS Secretary So before I do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the supplements that I offer, follow the protocols that I do for my health. A great way to improve your cardiovascular health and improve your bone health is to take vitamin K2, MK7, and D3. D3 helps to absorb the calcium. It's a gene expression cofactor. In addition, it also helps to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. Vitamin K2 will help for depositing new bone, especially if you do resistance training on your bones and on your joints. So doing weightlifting is very important in this protocol. And not only that, when you stack these together, you're helping your cardiovascular health and you're helping with your bone health. So please take the D3, take the K2, MK7 together, do either calcium supplements or drink milk. I drink milk on a regular basis. That's how I get my calcium. So do that, do the resistance training, and you're going to be able to improve your bone structure. But not only that, you're helping your cardiovascular health too. How? Because by taking the K2 and the D3, you're reducing the chances of the depositing around the plaque. A lot of times when people build up plaque, they also build up calcium deposits. This is kind of taking that out. Now, what's important is the nattokinase. Also, you can take as a supplement individually. It helps to bring down LDL levels, increases your HDL levels, but it's also in an important supplement for breaking up clots. It stacks really well with D3 and K2 for cardiovascular health. So my advice is to take the nattokinase with the D3 and the K2. Omega-3 also stacks well with nattokinase. It brings down systemic inflammation, prevents red blood cells from oversticking, and omega-3 helps your lipid profile. It'll bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So it improves your total cholesterol. Taking these together as a stack helps with bringing down your LDL levels and increases your HDL levels and helps to break up the clots and prevent clots from forming. Stacking all these together is really great for your cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the D3, get the K2, get the omega-3, should be taking omega-3 every day, and the nattokinase. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use the discount 5 to get $5 off. All right, with that, let's go to this whole NYC ICE raid by DHS.
So 15 minutes now before the hour, there's breaking news right now. It's happening. Christy Nomas in New York today. With ICE agents continuing their apprehension of criminal illegal aliens in major American cities. Thus far, more than 7,300 have been taken off the streets in 1 week alone. And now the focus is New York City. That's a big focus, too. Alexis McAdams on the sidewalk to tell us what's happening out there. Alexis, good morning.
Hey, Bill, well, we talked about it for months, the migrant crime all across the Big Apple. So now those crackdowns are here. As we speak, ICE is raiding areas, specifically out in the Bronx, and they're looking to target, Bill, migrants who they say are dangerous, including a Venezuelan man who was arrested earlier this morning who they say is dangerous. Take a look here, okay? This is some of the video. These guys rolled out into the streets of New York around 3 o'clock this morning. ICE agents out there on the streets. DHS showing us this video of the suspect cuffed, taken into custody out in the Bronx. The Venezuelan migrant arrested on these charges, okay? Kidnapping, assault, and burglary. Authorities say he crossed into the U.S. illegally at some point and had a warrant for his arrest out in Colorado, so they were looking for him for quite some time. Leading the charge this morning, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who says she's on the ground doing exactly what President Trump promised the American people. This was a multi-agency effort. Federal, state, local partners, you name it, they're all out there. The ICE raids aim to remove violent criminals who are not supposed to be in this country in the first place. Back out here live, the raids are not just happening right here in New York City, but across the country. Been showing it to you since the start of the administration. This is something the president said he was going to do, including a raid out in Denver. Watch. And the task force arresting 2 migrants there from Mexico who have ties to the Sinaloa and Jalisco drug cartels. 130,000 fentanyl pills found in that apartment, along with cocaine, meth, and heroin. The border czar says this is just the start of these raids. Back out here in New York, they already arrested a suspect who they say is a suspected terrorist who was hiding out in New York the other day, and they got him behind bars. So this continues as these guys are still out in the streets right now.
Well, we could go for some time too. Alexis, thank you. Nice to see you. Alexis McAdams outside of us today.
All right, let's bring in retired NYPD Lieutenant Darren Porcher. Darren, great to have you with us this afternoon. I don't ever remember seeing Alejandro Mayorkas, on the street during ICE raids, helping to get rid of these people. And we know who they are. This is what gets me. They already know who these people are. They're just removing them.
Right. Well, it's clearly we have diametric enforcement as relates to this administration compared to the prior administration. But it really begs the question, is quite telling, what the American people wanted was immigration reform. They want these illegal migrants that have come into this country to be removed, because you have a lot more people that have come to this country lawfully. And believe it or not, it's those lawful migrants that want the illegal migrants removed from this country. 55% of Latino males voted for Trump's agenda because it pushed the perspective of getting rid of these illegal migrants.
They want to be safe too.
Question of priorities too. I mean, New York City in 2 years has spent $7 billion on nearly 230,000 illegals seeking asylum here. They want to charge you more money for driving your car.
7 billion? Wait, did he say 7 billion? Let me just rewind that for a second.
Too. I mean, New York City in 2 years has spent $7 billion.
In 2 years, 2 years, New York City spends $7 billion. So roughly, assuming equal weight for each year, $3.5 billion a year. Meanwhile, we have veterans that are homeless. They're not getting the care that they need. That is nuts. Or people that are real, American citizens, that are in need and that need assistance in housing or in food. But we'll spend all this money for an ultra-liberal agenda. It's amazing. It's amazing how we treat our elderly and how we treat our veterans. It's so sad. I'll tell you, if we don't wake up on how we are treating our elderly and how we're treating our veterans, this country is gonna be flushed right down the toilet.
Illegals seeking asylum here. They want to charge you more money for driving your car. It's crazy. Illegal immigrants, here we go, 759,000 total. However, 58,626 with criminal convictions or pending criminal charges. And that's the number that people like Tom Holm is going after.
Absolutely right. Look at it from the perspective of a macro and a micro level of enforcement. The macro is the broader perspective of the country. The micro is the focus on cities, which are sanctuary cities such as New York. The target is getting these illegal migrants out. We want to live in a safe society. And what you're going to see from the micro perspective in these sanctuary cities such as New York and Chicago, the crime rates are going to go down because we're going to remove a lot of these illegal migrants from these cities.
Yeah, here's my conversation a while back with Mayor Eric Adams about this, because it could change politics in the city as well. Here's what he said when I asked him about letting ICE do their work. Find a way through executive orders to allow ICE to function in this city to carry out deportations.
We're going to allow them to, the areas that we can allow them to do right now, we're going to sit down with our attorneys and see what executive orders I can do to give me more power to go after those who are creating illegal acts.
How does that square with what you're seeing on the street right now?
Well, I think Mayor Adams is closing the gate after the horses already escaped. I mean, this illegal migration has reached epic proportions, and there were many instances in the past where this could have been thwarted.
This is a national security issue. Stop the legal bullshit. It's a national security issue. God.
I think that he's getting on the bandwagon, but fortunately, the progression is going in the right direction to keeping us as the 8.5 million residents being safe. We're under siege based on this migrant crisis. When you go blocks away, you see a migrant shelter everywhere, and the crime is going through the roof, but hopefully we can get the job done.
Karen, what do you do when the churches or the schools protect them?
How do you feel about having a violent migrant in a school?
Stop donating to the churches. That's how if you stop these institutions and harboring these criminals, then it'll be easier to clean up the streets. Why are you donating to your particular place of worship if they are literally preventing our government from cleaning up the whole illegal immigration policy of the Biden administration? Maybe they should lose status as a nonprofit. Maybe they should be taxed.
So just think about that as a parent. Do you want a violent migrant in the schools? No. So there should be no holds barred. You should have the ability to go in there, if you have a warrant or not, to remove a violent individual from a school to ensure that our students are safe.
Well, they talked about Chicago for weeks, and they pulled back and waited a few days. And now New York is in the crosshairs, and we'll see how it goes. Aaron, thanks. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. I think the best is yet to come.
Yeah. Before we go to Bloomberg, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the great supplements that I have, that I use on a regular basis. One great supplement for you to buy is the Structural Nano Silver Toothpaste. This will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, maintain a good gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line, reduce plaque. And when you have good oral hygiene, you're reducing the chances of cavities, but also cardiovascular disease and valvular disease. So please go to my store, get this great toothpaste. It's the best toothpaste that you're going to be able to get. Get a few tubes of this for your household. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, get $5 off. Another supplement that I've added to my protocol is NAD+. Why did I add it? It's really important to boost up your energy levels. And NAD+ helps to repair DNA damage. And NAD+ helps to protect neurons. When you get older, you need to repair your DNA and you need to protect your neurons. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable CoQ10 that you can get. So please go to my store, get the highest bioavailable CoQ10 that you can buy. CoQ10 will help to boost up energy levels, improve the mitochondrial health. It's an antioxidant, so it's going to be soaking up free radicals, and it's going to help to protect your neurons. Very important supplement when you get older. And when I mean older, 40 plus. Resveratrol. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. All right. Very important. It's an antioxidant. Helps to get rid of cells that have gone into senescence. And it is synergistic with C60. It'll soak up free radicals, help boost up energy levels because it's helping with the mitochondrial health. So please get the resveratrol from my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You get the biggest benefit from resveratrol when you stack it with C60 or NAD+ or ubiquinol, resveratrol really gets supercharged when you stack it with other supplements. A lot of people don't know that. So I just gave you a little nugget of important knowledge on how to stack stuff. Resveratrol works better when you stack it with other things like C60, NAD+, ubiquinol. Okay, now more than 300,000, I just missed the news that just posted here. People returning to widespread destruction and shortages. This is in the Gaza area. Yeah, let's go to Al Jazeera here for a second.
Nation Security Council is holding a briefing on the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. This comes as Israel's law banning the organization in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories is set to come into effect this week. UNRWA's chief told the council that shutting the agency will harm Palestinian lives.
The relentless assault on UNRWA is harming the lives and future of Palestinians across the occupied Palestinian territory. It is eroding the trust in the international community, jeopardizing prospect for peace and security.
Al Jazeera's Gabriel Elizondo is following developments from UN headquarters in New York.
A critical meeting because I think this is really probably one of the last chances that Filippo Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of UNRWA, is making his case to the Security Council and by extension to the broader international community. And that's because this Israeli legislation is set to go into effect later this week. He laid out a whole string of ramifications on how this would affect Palestinians. But I can say it comes down to really two things I think that I want to highlight. Number one is if UNRWA is shut down and can no longer operate in Gaza, particularly, who's going to provide the services? Who's going to provide the healthcare? Who's going to provide the teachers, the schooling for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that get this aid from UNRWA right now? Israel says other agencies can do it. UNRWA and most of the other international community says there is no alternative to UNRWA because of UNRWA's staffing. For one thing, they have 13,000 staff in Gaza, 5,000 more working today. The second thing is, how would this affect the ceasefire? Commissioner General said this could potentially put ramifications on the ceasefire in Gaza as well. So a whole host of ramifications here, but the bottom line is hundreds of thousands of Palestinians rely on the services of UNRWA every single day. 60% of the aid getting into Gaza since the ceasefire went into effect is going through UNRWA. This will have major ramifications if UNRWA can no longer operate.
In other words, dozens of people have been killed and hundreds wounded in the Democratic Republic of Congo's eastern city of Goma as rebels have taken control. This is a scene in Goma where intense gun battles are being fought between remaining government forces and M23 fighters. Water and electricity supplies to the city have been cut off. The Reuters news agency is reporting the rebels have taken control of Goma International Airport. The group's rapid advance has forced thousands of people from their homes.
We saw and heard terrible things we haven't seen in our country. Thank God we have made it out. We haven't had anything to eat since the war erupted 3 days ago. We could not cook because we had taken.
Now, what's interesting here is they're interviewing someone. It's a Tanzanian driver. You got this DRC border dispute. All right, or maybe it's not a dispute, but there's some military thing that's going on with the Congo. Congo has problems with pathogens. Tanzania has problems with pathogens. You have some military conflict going on at the same time. That doesn't sound too good. I'm not saying that something will happen. I'm just saying those are two data points. Pathogens in the area and military operations in the area is a bad combo. Instability in the region.
Bullets and bombs were landing just next to us the whole time.
Meanwhile, protesters have attacked several embassies in the capital of Democratic Republic of Congo. The French, Rwandan, Belgian, and Ugandan, as well as American compounds were targeted. People have been angered by the advance of M23 fighters in the east. The Congolese government says police are now back in control of the capital, Kinshasa, and security has been increased at the embassies. Let's go live to Malcolm Webb, who's following developments for us from Nairobi. Malcolm, tell us about the situation in the east, in Goma. Are the M23 fighters firmly in control of the city, or are they still facing resistance from government troops?
M23 fighters are in control.
Now, think about it. What is keeping this stuff at bay in terms of pathogens like Marburg? All right, and some other pathogen problems that they're having, and Mpox. It's healthcare workers treating patients and creating these zones of inoculation to prevent outbreak. All right. If you have a government that is unstable, there's an increased probability of breakout of Marburg or Mpox.
It is being control of most of the city since they started marching into the city on Sunday alongside Rwandan soldiers, and then early Monday morning announced they'd taken control. It was followed by almost 2 days of heavy gunfire and mortar fire in several parts of the city, which people in Goma say has now tailed off, leaving, as you mentioned, hundreds of people injured in hospitals and many more unable to access medical treatment because of the fighting in the streets, as well as people in displacement camps who've lost access to food aid. The power has been off for at least 4 days, affecting communications. Thousands have fled over the border to neighboring Rwanda.
Thank you very much for the updates. That's Al Jazeera's Malcolm Webb in Nairobi. Well, earlier I spoke to Phil Clark, who's a professor of international politics at SOAS University, focusing on conflicts in Central Africa. He explains why he thinks the Congolese are angry at international partners.
I think the sense of many everyday Congolese is that M23 wouldn't have been able to march on Goma, wouldn't have been able to capture so much territory as it has done in Eastern Congo over the last couple of years, without at least the non-interference of Western governments. Many Congolese people have been looking to the likes of the French government, the US government, the British government, the European Union, the major international powers that have some influence over Rwanda. Congolese people believe that that influence has not been exerted on Rwanda, and by extension has not been exerted on the M23 rebels. That's why we've seen protesters in Kinshasa today targeting those foreign embassies. I think it shows just how important Rwanda has made itself to those international partners. If you look at the relationship between Rwanda and France, for example, in the last couple of years, a very important strategic alliance between those two countries has been forged. Rwanda is providing peacekeeping troops in Mozambique, protecting Total and other French business interests in that part of Africa. So France is very reluctant to rein Rwanda in because of that relationship that it has with the Rwandan government. In terms of the US, I think Rwanda is capitalizing on the presidency of Donald Trump and a sense that Trump will turn a blind eye to what is taking place in Africa. He seems to have no appetite for getting involved in these kinds of African conflicts. I think Rwanda has calculated that the US won't exert pressure here, and so it can continue to back M23 in the way that it has over the last year or two.
Still ahead on Al Jazeera, a report from the ruins of southern Lebanon, where residents are returning to homes that have been destroyed, and a new political reality after Israel's devastating conflict with Hezbollah.
All right, so now, all right, so what I want to do is just plug a couple more products here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. A great way to build muscle and maintain muscle, especially when you're older or if you're an athlete, is to take Myotrol. Myotrol also helps to boost up your mitochondrial health so you'll have more ATP. That is very important for muscle maintenance. Take Myotrol every day. If you're older, also do some resistance training. If you're an athlete, keep on doing your, your training. But to get those strength gains, additional strength gains, taking Myotrol will help you. And also, you'll notice that because this reduces inflammation, your recovery is better too. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. This stacks really well with the Gladiator barley. Dual purpose product like olive leaf extract helps to improve your cardiovascular health, right? Brings down inflammation and brings down LDL, increases your HDL levels. That helps with your cardiovascular system. And olive leaf extract helps with the immune system by bringing down the inflammatory response. Remember what I said, chronic inflammation leads to your immune system going down, and chronic inflammation also exacerbates cardiovascular disease. So you want to bring down that inflammatory response. So take olive leaf extract. This is a very high quality supplement. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5 on any of the products or on any order you get. You can use the discount once for every order you do. C60, very strong antioxidant. This is one of the pillars of the 4 pillars that I was mentioning earlier. This, you take a teaspoon a day, take it every day, and it'll soak up those free radicals, bring down the stress levels in the cell, and improve the health of the mitochondria. So your ATP will go up, and with better performance of cells and tissues and organs, your body is going to perform better, and you're slowing down the aging process because you're soaking up those free radicals. So please go to my store, get the 2 ounce, the 4 ounce, or the 8 ounce configuration. You can get it in an avocado oil, MCT coconut oil, or extra virgin olive oil. Take a teaspoon a day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and stock up on C60. Really important. It's one of the major pillars of this protocol. I take it every day. I take a teaspoon a day. All right, let's go back to Bloomberg here.
Oh, if they can get it together by next week to at least say, here are the broad numbers, here's an assignment for each committee to work under, and say, here's how much you can add to the deficit. We want you to subtract this much from the deficit. It's not the bill itself, but it's a fairly heavy lift, and they want to get that done next week. There's still leaving a lot to the imagination with the specifics. It sounds like they're still going for one big, beautiful bill, as Republicans say. They still think they can get an almost unanimous vote on the debt limit through this reconciliation process. If that's politically realistic, you can have a whole debate about that. But they are kind of hitting the accelerator and saying, all right, we're going to get the first stages done by next week, which is ambitious to say the least.
Boy, I should say so, and we're going to be reading about it with the help of Jack Fitzpatrick, reporting from Bloomberg Government. He's live on Capitol Hill right now, just waiting for the numbers to return. Jack, great to see you, and thank you so much. Find his story, by the way, on the pausing, if we can use that word, in federal funding and grants on the terminal and online. Great work from Jack Fitzpatrick. As we turn our attention abroad, coming up next, the administration's approach to trade, the mini trade war, if we can call it that we had on Sunday, and the impact of tariffs. Donald Trump just updated his stance on this. Rob Waters is up next on Bloomberg.
All right, while we're waiting for them to recycle, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I have structural nano silver gels. You can get it in the tube form or in the easy to use dispenser. Both you use the same way. They help with your skin health, speed up the healing process of a cut, an abrasion, a minor burn. During the cold season, put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears. Lightly coat your nostrils, and voila, it stays active for 5 hours. Get the structural nano silver gels. It's great as a skincare. Be prepared. Make sure you have it at your desk, at work when you need it, or in your home when you need it. So please stock up. Get the structural nano silver gels. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, it's all caps, discount, and the number 5, you get $5 off. All right, so let's, I want to, all right, the Senate is voting on Duffy as Transportation Secretary right now. Right now, the roll call vote is 40 yeas and 13 nays at the moment. All right, let's go to Al Jazeera here for a second.
Go beyond just the national boundary.
The technology gap between the two countries may be narrowing, but DeepSeek founder Liang Wenfeng says the US embargo on high-end chips remains a challenge. China's strict censorship laws are another. For DeepSeek users, discussion about China's leaders or sensitive issues, including Hong Kong or Taiwan, are currently off limits. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
2 Colombian Air Force planes carrying around 200 migrants expelled from the U.S. have arrived in the capital, Bogota. This follows Sunday's standoff when Colombia's President Gustavo Petro barred 2 U.S. planes carrying migrants from landing. Both countries imposed retaliatory tariffs on each other's goods, but reached a deal a short while after. Now, Italy's Prime Minister says she's being placed under investigation by prosecutors in Rome for repatriating a Libyan suspect wanted by the International Criminal Court. Giorgia Meloni says she is suspected of aiding and abetting the crime, but says she will not.
I'm going to go to CNN here. Oh no, that video is too long. I was going to go to CNN. They were interviewing They were interviewing Collins. Collins was pressing the border czar. Maybe I'll play that. Let me start that video.
I need women to know that you're not limited to anything other than living your life openly and honestly.
Ask your healthcare provider if Biktarvy is right for you, and visit Biktarvy.com to view the important facts, including important warnings.
A hot and steamy au jus is the king of dips. It enhances the flavor of everything. Roast beef, onions, cheese. I would dip everything in au jus if I...
Just today, ICE says it has made 1,179 arrests. How many of those people have been convicted of crimes in the U.S.?
I don't know exact numbers with me, but I'll give you an example. I was in Chicago yesterday for that operation, and everybody but I think 4 were collateral arrests. Everybody else was a criminal. And when I walked out at the end of my shift, we already had, I think, 9 trained to Agua. 2 of them actually being charged with crimes because here's an illegal alien gang member in the United States selling illegal guns in the neighborhood, and they even sold the switches, was turned the gun into fully automatic machine guns. We arrested, I think we had a total of 7 sexual predators, sexual crimes against children. We had 2 illegal aliens convicted of murder that were released by that state prison back to the streets. So everybody we arrested in Chicago yesterday was a significant public safety threat. There were several collateral arrests, so they had to be there when we arrested the bad guy. So this operation right now is concentrated on public safety threats and national security threats throughout the country.
So the majority of those yesterday did have criminal records, and do you believe the majority of today's numbers have criminal records?
I won't see those numbers till midnight tonight, but again, we're focused on criminals. But I think you and I discussed before, but in sanctuary cities, you're going to see a higher number of collateral arrests. I mean, we're going to have more criminals, but there's going to be a big number of what we call collateral, because when we're forced into the neighborhood to find the bad guy, he's probably going to be with others, and we're not going to instruct ICE agents to ignore their oaths, ignore the law. If they're here illegally, they're going to go to jail too. And that's why I'm imploring the sanctuary cities, let us in the jail, arrest the bad guy in jail, where the community is safe, the officers safe, the aliens safe.
You notice that CNN is more concerned about the collaterals and not so concerned about getting rid of these gang members. They want to protect the collaterals. The thing is the collaterals are also here illegally.
You will get exactly what you don't want.
And
more
when you
agents in the neighborhood and more collateral arrests.
When you say collateral arrest, you mean someone who doesn't have a criminal record, but is here is an undocumented immigrant, they still get deported as well, right? You're not letting them go back to
Undocumented. You know what's amazing is that I've heard this. I don't remember what video I played. Maybe I played it on one of the shows, or maybe I just listened to it when I was off air. But there is this video that I saw that said, you know, if you're an American citizen, you're driving your car, and let's say you're speeding and you're pulled over, and you don't have your license on you, that's being undocumented. You don't have the proper documentation, but you're here legally, all right? The thing is that there is no such thing as undocumented immigrant. What that is you're illegal. They're just trying to whitewash it. They never had a document. It's not undocumented. It's just that they never had a document. It's amazing. Why can't CNN literally say illegal alien, which is the proper legal definition? That's the proper term. That's the legal term, illegal alien. Why can't they use that? But they have to use some ultra-liberal bullshit and whitewash everything with wordsmithing.
neighborhoods or to their jobs, is that right?
Yeah, if they're in the country illegally, they're gonna get arrested too.
Now that you're officially in your position, you've been here about a week on the job. We spoke to you last before you would actually come in formally to the role. Do you have a better target number for how many people you want to deport overall?
As many as we can. My goal is, I think success is removing every criminal gang member out of this country, every public safety threat, illegal alien out of this country, every child trafficker, illegal alien out of this country. Then that aperture opens, right? We got 1.4 million illegal aliens in this country who had due process at great taxpayer expense. They were ordered removed by a federal judge and didn't leave. They became a fugitive. They're next. So we're going to keep opening that aperture and enforcing immigration law. And our door goes in the country illegally. Those who don't have a final order, those who have not been ordered by the immigration judge, if you're in the country illegally, you should leave. Because if we have to formally deport you, you can face anywhere from a 5 to 20 year bar from ever coming back, either as a student, a visitor visa, a tourist visa, or be petitioned by a U.S. citizen child. If you're in the country illegally, you haven't been ordered deported, leave and come back the right way, because there will be other opportunities.
You're talking about going after public safety threats, national security threats first, but you just said that aperture is going to widen, meaning the scope of the people you're going to go after. How long do you anticipate before you're in that next phase where the aperture has gotten wider?
Very soon. I mean, sanctuary cities are making it very difficult to arrest the criminals. For instance, Chicago, very well educated. They've been educated how to defy ICE, how to hide from ICE. And I've seen many pamphlets from many NGOs. Here's how you escape ICE from arresting you. Here's what you need to do. They call it know your rights. I call it how to escape arrest. There's a warrant for your arrest, and they tell you how to hide from ICE. No, don't open your door. Don't answer questions. Okay, you can call it know your rights all you want, but they've been ordered for their removal. They've been ordered removed by a federal judge after due process at great taxpayer expense. They need to go. But if we got to play that cat and mouse game, that's what we're going to do to everyone we're going.
In terms of how you're messaging this, obviously you've been speaking publicly. We know that officials were told to be ready to be in front of the cameras. Agents were, that they could be around when these arrests were happening. We saw Dr. Phil was along and embedded with one of your teams. How much thought are you putting into making this kind of a made-for-TV moment in order to publicly message or whatever your strategic goal is here?
Well, look, we got Christine Noem, she got her vote this weekend. You're going to see a lot more from Secretary of DHS. Should be out here talking much more. We've the new CBP commissioner that was being nominated, Rodney Scott. He will empower the chief patrol agents to talk. So we want all the frontline managers to talk throughout the country. But the message I'm sending is that we're going to force immigration laws in this country. That people don't like. If they like it, then they need to change the law, because ICE isn't making this up. We're enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by the president. but we're doing it a smart way. The Trump administration in the beginning says we're going to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats out of the gate. The worst first, and that's what we're doing. But like I say, as we go on, we're not going to say it's okay for 1.4 million illegal aliens to ignore a judge's order to deport. So they're going to be next. And we're going to keep opening that aperture up. So we're sending a message. It's not okay to be in this country legally. It's not okay to enter this country legally. It's a crime.
It's about time that we actually had some common sense running our border system. This is exactly what America has been looking for. And you know what? I'll tell you, this is Homan, he's doing a great job, But of course, CNN wants to demonize the Trump administration, and they want to wordsmith and not really pay attention that we actually have a national security threat at our border.
Do you have a number of how many people you'd like to have deported by this time next year?
I don't have a number. As many as we can arrest them.
Okay, but no firm number.
First of all, if they're in the country legally, they got a problem and they're not off the table.
Yeah, but on numbers, you have been clear that your success here in this effort will depend on how much money you can get from Congress. Now that you're in this role, do you know how much money, what kind of budget you would need to deport the people that you say are public safety threats, national security threats, and also the 1.2 million that you just referenced there?
Is it just me, but her voice is annoying. She is just annoying.
The judge?
1.4 million. And yes, we need more than 100,000 beds. Right now, we got about 34,000 beds. We'll fill them up in a week. So we need at least 100,000 beds. We need more international air flights. We need more ground transportation. We need more money to hire more officers and military agents. And that's why we're bringing right now, the whole government is coming in, right? In the Chicago operation and every operation throughout the country now. We got DEA, we got FBI, we got U.S. Marshals, we got ATF, we got HSI, we got ERO. So right now we're bringing the whole government into this so we can create more teams and arrest more people. So this dynamic is constantly changing. And depending on the city, is it a sanctuary city, not a sanctuary city?
Yeah, you're using them as like a force multiplier, but when it goes to the real money that you'll need from Congress to get more beds and to hire more agents, if Congress is not reliable, as I'm sure you are well aware in terms of what they can get passed. I know they believe this is a big part of Trump's agenda, but if you don't get what you need from Congress, can you achieve what you're trying to achieve here?
We're going to do everything we can with what we have, and we'll arrest as many as we can. However, you're right. We can be more successful if we have more money, if we can buy more beds. Because every time we arrest an illegal alien, we just don't deport them that day. We have to detain them for a few days or a few weeks to get travel documents, get landing rights in their own country. So the more money we have, the more we can do.
Mr. Homan, I've got a few more questions for you. If you'll stick around for a few minutes, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Mr. Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, after a short.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. This is the last pillar of the 4-pillar system that I've been talking about. Boost up your energy levels. Boomer Boost is a powder. You get a big scooper, take it every day. You'll be able to lose weight. Take it either as your breakfast or your lunch. You mix it with soft foods or mix it with filtered water. Some people mix it with milk. But it's like a superfood. It has a lot of nutrients, all right? I have no time in this broadcast to be able to list all the nutrients in here. So please go to the label picture on my website for this. Take a look at it. It's pretty impressive, all right? So I've added this as another pillar to this anti-aging protocol and boost up your immune system. So Boomer Boost will help with your cardiovascular system. It will help you to lose weight. It'll help with your controlling blood glucose levels. It will help with building muscle and gaining strength. It'll help with your metabolism and boost up your energy levels. Really important, especially when you get older. And Boomer Boost helps with brain health. So you get lots of benefits from this. Please take this every day, either for breakfast or lunch. And you'll notice that you're losing weight. And if you're doing some working out, you know, resistance training and cardiovascular training, stretching and balancing exercises on a regular basis, you're going to get in shape. You're going to build more muscle. You're going to be healthier. This is a great way to do it. So please go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. Use discount 5. I also created a longevity boost box where you get Boomer Boost and your choice of barley, either